Chapter 628. The opponent had given Tang Tian face, and with the 200 Qing continent tyrannical mounts, they had the ability to take them all down. Roughly 100 Qing continent tyrannical mounts walked along the streets and slowly approached, an indescribable pressure surging out. Qing continent tyrannical mounts, heh. Very quickly the troops started to have casualties, mainly the Ling family and eldest young nobles' bodyguards. They had never fought with their enemies one-on-one and never clashed head-on with their enemies. They were like a regiment of black mercury that kept on changing, always protecting Tang Tian. This subordinate knows his wrongs. Xie Yuan admitted his wrongs without hesitation, and immediately flew to gather his army. Tang Chou stared at Xie Yuan expressionlessly. You plan to go against my orders? Tang Tian's words caused eldest young noble Ling Xia and the rest behind him to have a change in their faces. The Qing continent tyrannical mount's reputation was like the sun in the sky, and they were currently the strongest elites. The bodyguards continued to take care of the injured enemies, and at this point, everyone's eyes were bloodshot. The streets that they had walked on were littered with countless of corpses, and the ground was filled with blood. Aya's expression changed. After a moment she clenched her teeth and said, "Yes." The voice that came out from the front caused eldest young noble and Ling Xia to be startled. They thought that they had heard wrongly. Ling Xia's face was as white as paper. She could not think of any reason for Meng Nan to reject. 200 figures, as though they were one, lit up with light auras that spewed out like raging flames, swallowing and spitting. They swept through the air at high speeds, causing a low rumble that transmitted to the ground. The houses and everything on the streets were all trembling. It was as though a thunder had exploded in the air without any warning, causing the ground to shake. The bodyguards returned in bewilderment. "Retreat." Tang Tian snorted. "Godlike young lad, this battle is destined to belong to you. You have been sweating for days and nights, wasn't it to prepare for enemies like the one you are facing now?" After saying that, Tang Tian walked out from the crowd. At the end of the street a group of people appeared. Xie Yuan and Aya looked at each other, a bad premonition rising in their hearts. Xie Yuan hesitated. "Sir, should we first send out scouts to gather information?" Ah Sang stared blankly at Tang Tian. Was there something wrong with this guy's head? He never thought that Tang Tian would refuse, and in such a straightforward manner. Assemble. Any ordinary warship would cost more than 10 billion cloud coins, but what was more precious were the 100 Qing continent's tyrannical mounts. Following the Qing continent's tyrannical mounts becoming famous in the various continents, they were already hard to find. Warships could be bought with money, but Qing continent's tyrannical mounts could not be bought with money. 100 Qing continent's tyrannical mounts, that was truly a huge sum. "Come, let's fight." He raised his head and looked at the white sand city that was already covered in black smoke, his gaze becoming even colder. Target White Sand City, full speed ahead. Suddenly Tang Tian stopped, and the underworld continent's demonic mounts who noticed Tang Tian's strange behavior immediately became cautious. Xie Yuan and the rest were worried about him, but he did not care. What did the White Sands continent have to do with him? If they angered him, they might not be able to destroy the White Sands continent, but it would be easy for them to loot the White Sands continent. Since they could not avoid paying the price, then they had to pay the price. As long as they won, all their efforts would be worth it. But the dense black smoke caused everyone to be shocked. They were all people who had fought before and knew what it was. Aleng and the rest were shocked. "Master." The wind blew on his face, but it did not calm him down at all, but instead fanned the flames in his chest, causing the flames burning in his chest to become even more intense. There was nothing better than a battle to test one's strength. His bodyguards had already suffered a considerable number of casualties, with a fifth of them gone. But the group of old fellows did not have any casualties. After carefully observing their battle, he was even more surprised. The group of old fellows were all extremely shrewd and ruthless. Their coordination was extremely adept. The previous banquet, Meng Nan had created such a huge commotion, causing him to be equally shocked, and that was the reason why he was so humble today. For such a powerful martial artist, even if he won, he would most likely suffer a lot. Eldest young noble's face was ashen. Only when he saw the underworld continent's demonic mounts by Tang Tian's side would a look of fanaticism flash past his eyes. Ah Sang did not expect Tang Tian to reject him. He was stunned for a moment, then said, If Master is not satisfied with the conditions, we can discuss again. Advancing, retreating, piercing through, cutting diagonally, they were always able to break down the enemy's attacks. The entire process was pleasing to the eyes, as though it was an art. Qing continent's tyrannical mounts. But that did not mean that he was afraid of Meng Nan. In the era where armies ruled, the Qing continent's tyrannical mounts were already at the top of the food chain, and with 200 Qing continent's tyrannical mounts, he had the confidence to defeat Meng Nan. Xie Yuan's swift army was only a pseudo-silver grade army, while Aya's pink skull was a mercenary army. With such strength, if they were to enter the maelstrom, they would most likely be wiped out. Even a silver grade army would not dare to rush in at such a time. At such a time, it was taboo for him to have too many personal thoughts. Qing continent's tyrannical mounts, tyrannical and unparalleled. They were opponents on the same level as them. No, the underworld continent's demonic mounts had declined for a long time, while the Qing continent's tyrannical mounts were currently awe-inspiring. Compared to them, the reactions of the other bodyguards were slower by a beat. Tang Chao's cold voice was filled with killing intent. He looked at White Sands City expressionlessly. Master is still in the city. With the might of MT Tai pressing down on them, everyone's faces changed. Only Tang Tian's face had an indescribable calmness. Excitement, unprecedented excitement. Xie Yuan quivered. He knew that his hesitation had already caused Master Tang Chou to be unhappy. The trust between both parties was still weak, and any hesitation at such a time would only ruin the future of the swift army. Xie Yuan immediately understood that he had made a huge mistake. Since the swift army had already chosen Master Meng Nan, in a certain sense, the swift army no longer belonged to him. Not only that, he and the swift army already belonged to Master Meng Nan. Such a sacrifice was a meaningless sacrifice. I am sorry, I have already promised to protect eldest young noble. Ling Xia and eldest young noble's faces turned as white as paper. It was definitely not a good idea to fly into the sky at such a time. There was nothing more exciting than a strong opponent. Countless of fireflies appeared out of nowhere, instantly covering the entire street. Smoke filled the entire street, but under the illumination of the fireflies, there was a sense of tranquility and gentleness. The barracks was outside the city, and if they flew it would take about an hour. It used to be a warehouse of the Suji worldwide commerce, but was transformed into a temporary barracks. It was as though there was a voice in Tang Tian's heart shouting, defeat them, let them come back. Tang Tian stared at the empty end of the street and said without turning his head. Alung and the rest stared at the Qing continent's tyrannical mounts in dissatisfaction, and slowly retreated. Unmoving like a mountain but moving like thunder. The barracks bugle horn wailed, killing intent soaring to the sky. The leader, a short-haired man, walked out and bowed to Tang Tian, and spoke in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. We greet Mr. Meng Nan. I am Ah Sang. The last time we met, Master's demeanor was unforgettable. We have no intention of becoming enemies with Master. I wonder if Master can give us some face? Do not interfere in this matter. We are willing to gift you with a warship, along with 100 elite tyrannical mounts. Tang Tian said to the underworld continent's demonic mounts beside him. The pale-faced eldest young noble revealed a bitter smile. It seemed like this was the end. Instead he calmed down. The other party's strength far exceeded his. Just the price was far more than what he could pay. Compared to them, the promise he gave was so cheap that it was shameful. The fighting intent in Tang Tian's chest surged. Alung and the rest of the underworld continent's demonic mounts were true elite soldiers. They were Shi Sen's future demonic mounts' backbone officers, and to die in such a fight, it was not worth it. Without Shi Sen, the underworld continent's demonic mounts' fighting strength would be greatly reduced. The stronger the enemy, the more cruel the battle, the more it would sharpen the young man to become even stronger. All of you protect eldest young noble. Furthermore, the White Sands City in the distance could only be seen faintly. 30 underworld continents' demonic mounts, against 200 Qing continents' tyrannical mounts. They had no chance of winning. Ling Xia understood. Her face changed and immediately ordered the bodyguards to return. But the underworld continent's demonic mounts by Tang Tian's side suddenly released a cold killing intent. The current underworld continent's demonic mounts were no longer a group of simple old men. Their entire bodies were releasing a terrifying killing intent, like many sharp swords that were unsheathed, not concealing their sharp auras at all. The Qing continent's tyrannical mounts in front of them moved. They pounced forward like a pack of wolves. Since Mr. Meng wants to get involved in this mess, then I will have to offend you. Ah Sang was expressionless, his gaze becoming cold. What's going on? What happened in White Sands City? Is there a disturbance? Tang Chou was expressionless, but his heart heaved a sigh of relief. The two armies had just been bought and it had not been long, and he himself did not trust the armies that he bought. If the two of them truly refused to listen to his orders, he would not be able to do anything. But he knew if he had any hesitation he would not be able to command the two armies. Tang Tian stared at the Qing continent's tyrannical mounts, his blood boiling. Qing continent's tyrannical mounts, such powerful enemies are not easy to meet. Retreat. His bodyguards were usually powerful and imposing, while the underworld continent's demonic mounts by Tang Tian's side were all ugly-looking and somewhat old. They were not as elite as his bodyguards. Tang Tian immediately recognized them. The leader of the group was the group of people that he and Zhou Xian had met at the mercenary center. Looking at the flames and black smoke in White Sands City, the soldiers who were training in the barracks all stopped. Tang Tian's actions were like sweet honey, attracting countless of hunters, and when they saw Tang Tian, they would always reveal a trace of hesitation and fear. But very quickly the hesitation and fear was replaced by greed and fanaticism. Ling Xia and the rest's faces changed. It was just 100 people, but their aura was so powerful. Tang Tian shook his head. There is no need to discuss. Aya nodded her head. She felt that his method was more mature and prudent. The current situation in White Sands City was not clear, and if two armies were to suddenly barge in, no one knew what would happen. The White Sands continent was not a small continent, and if they were to barge in, it would be seeking their own destruction. Chapter 629. Tang Tian had never felt that he was so close to death. It was as though he could see the pale white face of the death god. Before Ah Sang finished speaking, in his vision, a regiment of fire broke through the air from the Firefly Ocean. Immersed in this sea of red, one would involuntarily become lost in it. What was worse was that every time it exploded, it would ignite again. Meng Nan's ferocious name was too famous. Ah! The green light congealed into a spear. The tyrannical qi was like a wave that swept out in all directions. Ah Sang was extremely confident in his spear. The heavenly green flames itself was extremely tyrannical, like a ferocious wild beast, but the heavenly green spear that was congealed through a special technique was like an impenetrable net that covered the group of wild beasts, and when the net was broken, the ferocious nature of the wild beasts would increase by several folds. The heavenly green tyrannical spear's qi that was restrained to the extreme suddenly erupted. Scatter. Using the spiraling energy, it was a killing technique that combined the null flames and the Firefly Ocean into one. He firmly believed that even someone as strong as Meng Nan, in front of the heavenly green tyrannical spear, would be defeated. Pa pa pa. The green light spear and Tang Tian's fist collided without any fancy moves. The fireflies floating around all entered the null flames, and in the blink of the eye the gray null flames had dyed the red fireflies. More and more fireflies were attracted, and if one looked down from the sky, the entire fire cloud was surging towards Tang Tian's position, as though there was an invisible hole there. The green light regiment was about to explode, but the gray lines lit up with a faint light, like a dense gray net. It firmly suppressed the tyrannical green light regiment. The heavenly green tyrannical spear did not explode, causing Ah Sang to be surprised, but he calmed down. The power that was suppressing the heavenly green tyrannical spear was quickly weakening. He did not have much energy left. The spear that he had unleashed previously had exhausted all of his energy. The dazzling light regiment exploded in front of Tang Tian's eyes, like a ferocious beast that was stealthily approaching its prey. Its sharp fangs and claws instantly revealed a sinister look. But he never thought that Tang Tian would actually be able to suppress the heavenly green tyrannical spear, causing his face to become sluggish. The long fiery tail formed a red fiery screen. Spiraling energy. The massive fire cloud would cause people's faces to change, and that was why Ah Sang was willing to lower himself, hoping that Meng Nan would retreat. It was a pity that his plan to bribe him failed, and upon facing Meng Nan, Ah Sang displayed his decisive side. Facing a powerful martial artist like Meng Nan, the opponent would not give him much chance. Especially when the fire cloud appeared, the terrifying scene. Tang Tian, Xian immediately used his strongest technique. A green light spear pierced through the dense fireflies and pierced through the air. The heavenly green tyrannical spear's spear tail began to explode, and with every explosion, its aura would increase by another level. When the spear had exploded, the power was raised to the maximum. The faint green light ball brought along a tyrannical aura, like a heavy hammer, smashed towards Tang Tian. As sang it would as to it. Tang Tian did not know where this power came from, but at this time how could he care about anything else? Behind the vast ocean, the hidden unswerving face reflected the glow of the fireflies and the ocean. The young man's figure was like a javelin, his tranquil eyes seemed to be able to penetrate the vastness and nothingness. Bang bang bang, his legs moved frantically and one after another, the air shield beneath his feet exploded out at an astonishing rate. Bang bang bang. His legs stomped madly on the ground, and the air shields under his feet exploded at an alarming rate. Bang bang bang, his legs moved frantically and one after another, the air shield beneath his feet exploded out at an astonishing rate. Pa pa pa. You always want to embrace the world, you never forget about the stars. This was the Qing continent's tyrannical mount's unique, heavenly green flames. His body bent like a bow, he stepped forward and grasped the air. Power. His body was once again filled with power. But the powerful and heavy heavenly green tyrannical spear that was enveloped by the gray-patterned fire screen continued to strike towards Tang Tian. The gray-patterned fire screen's power continued to dissipate. The energy undulation inside became even more berserk, and Tang Tian felt as though he was hugging a huge bomb that could explode at any time. The fireflies in the surroundings all exploded like fireworks. The surging light aura caused the fireflies in the sky to be unable to move forward. Damn it! But just at that moment the sneer on his face suddenly froze. Behind the fireflies, Tang Tian's eyes suddenly exploded with two cold auras. The ferocious aura in front of him surged and fluctuated, and then suddenly retracted it. In that moment all of the hairs on Tang Tian's body stood up. In the sea of fireflies in front of him, it was as though there was an ancient ferocious beast crouching there. Countless fireflies formed a red flame that revolved, swallowing and spitting. The null flames suddenly revolved quickly. The countless fireflies formed a bewitching red flame. One end of the flame wrapped around Tang Tian's fist. Like a whirlpool, it spun at an astonishing speed. The long fiery tail extended out to a distance of 70 m. It looked extremely majestic, like a phoenix's long fiery tail. Within the blazing and enchanting flames, there was a trace of gray lines that were difficult to be seen by the naked eye. A sneer surfaced on Ah Sang's face. The power of the heavenly green tyrannical spear. Without personally experiencing it, one would never be able to understand. Meng Nan's head-on clash to him was no different from seeking death. The gray-patterned fire screen's energy undulated, his face changed, cold sweat dripping down. And Jing Hao represented another path. What he pursued was the laws of heaven and earth. What he pursued was the most fundamental laws of the world. If it was any other saint reaching such a realm, they would have long given up on techniques like the spiraling energy. But in Tang Tian's view, there was no such thing as absolute profoundness or superficiality. There was only suitability or unsuitability. Maybe it was a habit formed from training in fundamental martial techniques for so many years. He subconsciously roared out in anger, using all his might to instigate the remaining power in his body. His initially relaxed muscles once again tensed up. Strength, I need strength. But there was no fear on his face. Countless of battles had long tempered his mental state to be as tough as steel, and his competitive nature at that moment caused the fighting intent in his chest to soar high up like a fiery tail wantonly fluttering. The transparent ripple formed a thin transparent membrane, enveloping Tang Tian's fist and the red flames. Every time the long fiery tail swayed, a profound and cryptic aura would be quietly released, causing the fireflies around to become sluggish. The red flame vortex that enveloped Tang Tian's fist had an inconceivable change. Like a red umbrella, it suddenly opened up. The longer they stayed in the fire clouds, the more disadvantageous it would be for them, and Gong Qin had used his life to prove that. His pupils suddenly dilated, his face as white as paper. An intense sense of danger and death aura enveloped Tang Tian. The intense survival instincts made Tang Tian completely forget to think, and his body's instincts took over. Just from the energy undulation, Tang Tian was extremely sure that if it were to explode he would definitely die. The gray pattern fire screen's suppression on the heavenly green tyrannical spear was weakening at an alarming rate, and what was worse was that he did not hold back at all in his fist. He had just used up all his strength and had yet to regenerate. That was the true power of the heavenly green tyrannical spear. Its tyrannical and ferocious nature was unstoppable. Without any fancy moves, it was the most simple and unadorned straight fist. The moment the fist was released, a formless ripple suddenly exploded out. It was like a fierce beast, like a torrent, nothing could stop it. With just one charge, the Qing continent's tyrannical mounts made Tang Tian realize that they were able to intimidate the world, and had the capital to become a tyrant. The red fireflies brought along a calm madness that pervaded the air. The houses on the streets all had holes that started to melt, and in the blink of the eye, it became densely packed like a beehive. Every single Qing continent's tyrannical mount's method of combusting energy was extremely tyrannical, and what was even more terrifying was that even though they were combusting wantonly, their energy synchronization was flawless. He was clearly in the air, but it was as though he was stepping on solid ground. The power flowed from his legs to his waist and layer by layer. Tang Tian's body was like a tough and durable whip. His fist was the tip of the whip, and when the power was transferred to his fist, the power suddenly surged. The heavenly green tyrannical spear was 30 m long. The surging blazing light aura transformed into a green-white color. One spear, I only have one spear chance. Tang Tian ignored the cold intent that rose from his tailbone. He was like a cat that had its tail stepped on, his mental state tensed up to its limit. Countless fireflies were stirred up. The Qing continent's tyrannical mounts charged forward like lightning. The aftershock swept through the place, causing the buildings that were already filled with holes to collapse like castles. Tang Tian's roar came out from the depths of the firefly sea, causing Ah Sang's face to change. He sensed that the heavenly green tyrannical spear was flying towards them. Open! The ripple distorted the space. The might of the fist caused even the space to tremble. The empty palm was like a whirlpool and the green light was frantically pulled in. Sigh, the congealed energy quickly flowed out, like a thin blade skimming across water. The green light that the troops were spewing out suddenly dimmed. Tang Tian's body was like a dry land that had met with rain, frantically absorbing the warm flow. Not good. Bang. Ah! There was no sound of the wind, no screams. It was completely silent, like a green fierce beast that was sneaking in before it hunted its prey. All of its qi was extremely reserved. Ah Sang's attainments in heavenly green tyrannical spear had reached perfection. Not even a trace of qi was leaked out, showing his perfect control. The ferocity of the heavenly green tyrannical spear far exceeded Tang Tian's imagination. The sudden burst of attack made Tang Tian feel as though he was facing a prehistoric beast. Under the immense pressure, Tang Tian's state of mind was extremely calm. He exhaled and spoke. The bomb entered the firefly sea. Every explosion would release a warm flow. The concentrated explosions and countless of warm flows flooded Tang Tian's entire body. Tang Tian's pupils suddenly constricted. Pushing the bomb forward, Tang Tian continued to increase his speed, and after rushing forward for a few meters he gathered his last bit of strength and pushed his palms towards the direction of the Qing continent's tyrannical mounts. Tang Tian realized that he had still underestimated the power of the heavenly green tyrannical spear. Seeing that it was about to strike his chest, Tang Tian did not care about anything else. He retracted his right fist and immediately opened his left palm. Bang! He blocked the fireball, and using that as a buffer, his right fist turned into a palm, and at the same time he blocked the fireball. The green light regiment shot into the fiery screen like a rock. The fiery screen rolled up and like a red cloth, it enveloped the green light regiment. Ah Sang, who was usually calm and composed with a smile on his face, was currently glaring angrily. He was the most intense regiment of green flames. The other green flames were following him, calling out to him. His legs crossed, he bent his waist, and the gray null flames rose up without a sound. A series of explosions came out from Tang Tian's body, like beans being fried. Tang Tian felt something exploding in his muscles, tendons and bones. Chapter 630. Bang! Qiao Yian, who was beside Ying, trembled. Suddenly, a dazzling light aura soared into the sky. The astonishing explosion caused the entire White Sand City to tremble. I met 200 Qing continent's tyrannical mounts. Tang Tian's face twitched, but his smile looked extremely miserable. They are truly ferocious. Luckily this young lad's luck is not bad. Io, quickly help me up. It was Tang Chou. The skinny and tall man praised, I like your righteousness. Just at that moment a sound came out from ahead, causing Tang Tian and the rest's faces to change. They did not have any fighting strength at the moment, and just a group of hoodlums would be enough to kill all of them. Qiao Yian's face was pale white, the terrifying energy undulation. Even if it was him, not even his bones would be left. Everyone struggled to stand up, swaying. This godlike young lad is so powerful, Io. And what else do you have in the White Sands continent? Tang Tian's expression became serious. You do not have any cards in your hands, you are not their match. Also, don't think about my 2 armies, they haven't even completed their training. Ying has 3 silver-grade armies in his hands. Return? Ying laughed out loud. He still wants to return? Suabai and I have been enemies for so long, how can I give him the chance? His abilities are not bad, but his temper is bad and stubborn. It's better to just kill him, it's easier. The 2 of them looked at each other and laughed. It was a pity. He felt that the fox was sad. Ying frowned. I did not know that all of you were so afraid of those families. I have probed them a few times over the years, but did not find any abilities from them. A figure carefully climbed over the ghastly pit. Just as he climbed over the pit, he saw the black mass of people and his expression couldn't help but change. You understand me, it's just some small tricks. Ying revealed a sneer. That last Xianxia is still too tender. I only mixed some sand in her. If she wants to reorganize herself, who knows how long it will take her. But she will not have the chance. This time I will not let the Ling family live. Tang Tian, who had a smug expression on his face, suddenly grimaced and sucked in a breath of cold air. Qing continent's tyrannical mounts, Xiaoyu and Aya's faces changed. They looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Hearing the tall skinny man's last sentence, Ying's eyes flashed with a fiery heat. He laughed out loud. Don't worry. Now let's go take a look. The beautiful Miss Huron, the feeling of monopolizing a beauty is truly great. The heavenly green tyrannical spear was the most famous killing technique of the Qing continent's tyrannical mounts, and its might was known everywhere. Only after seeing it with his own eyes did he realize that it truly lived up to its reputation. His heart suddenly stirred. If such a supreme skill could be incorporated into this continent, then wouldn't it be? Beside Ying was a skinny and pale-faced man. His expression was gloomy and cold. If Ralph was here, he would definitely be able to tell that this person's voice was exactly the same as the mysterious man in the shadows. Damn it! Tang Tian thought for a moment, then said, Come, let's go to Suji Worldwide Commerce, drive the battleship and go home. Tang Tian sat paralyzed on the ground. His entire body was covered in mud. His entire body was limp, as though all his strength had been sucked out. At the end of the street, there was a large pit that had a diameter of over 1 kilometer, with black smoke rising in spirals. Gifts. Ying laughed happily. I like that way of putting it. But all of these gifts are priceless treasures. What a brilliant plan you have. The effect is superb. With all these family members in my hands, I do not believe that anyone will dare to go against me. Qiao Yian, who was by the side, remained silent, but a look of pity flashed past his eyes. Meng Nan's strength was outstanding and was a rarely seen strong martial artist, but in the era where armies ruled, strong martial artists would never be able to win against armies. Even for a strong martial artist like Meng Nan, in front of the elites of the Qing continent's tyrannical mounts, he did not have the leeway to struggle. The title of elites was definitely not something that could be casually obtained. To be able to be crowned with the title of elites, they were definitely of a higher level than the Qing continent's tyrannical mounts. And the main general, Ah Sang, was not a nameless person and was definitely a true dauntless general. He was now completely in awe of Tang Tian, and even if Tang Tian wanted him to die, he would not hesitate. A single person was actually able to kill the 200 Qing continent's tyrannical mounts that Ah Sang commanded. Such perverse strength was simply unheard of. The skinny and tall man's expression became more relaxed and he nodded his head. Until now our cooperation has been good. I hope that this will continue. At that time the White Sands continent will be your world. When Tang Chou saw Tang Tian's miserable state, he jumped in shock. Master, what's going on? Ying was surprised but immediately laughed out loud. Heavenly green tyrannical spear. Qing Continent's tyrannical mounts heavenly green tyrannical spear. How is it? Isn't it spectacular? With such power, with such elites, who can stop me? He Ying was high-spirited. Let's go. In such a chaotic situation we need to protect all the beauties and not be disturbed. Aya could not help but ask, Master, you guys killed the 200 Qing Continent's tyrannical mounts? Heavenly green tyrannical spear. Maybe a woman can do it too. He Ying laughed wretchedly. But I will definitely not give her to anyone else, to lie on a beauty's lap when drunk, to wield the world's power when awake, that is life. Tang Tian was startled. He turned and saw that it was Qin Yu Ran's bodyguard, and a bad premonition surfaced in his heart. Is Qin Yu Ran in danger? I can't let your investment go to waste, He Ying said with some pride. He Ying's face twitched and he laughed out loud. You're too nervous. Such a small matter, no problem. After killing Suabai, I will get the 3rd and 4th armies to retreat. That way the pirates can take advantage of the situation and rob the few families once and for all. Whether you live or die, it all depends on your mood. But we have to wait for Suabai to truly die. If not, without the 2 armies guarding, if Suabai turns around, we will be in trouble. He Ying was not afraid at all and sneered, I need to understand what I am doing if I am not careful and fall into someone's trap. When cutting weeds we need to remove the roots, you are right. The tall and skinny man nodded his head. What about that Meng Nan? He is an unstable factor, you must not be careless. The tall and skinny man revealed a smile. Especially with so many free gifts. After Suabai is dead, lend me the pirates. The tall and skinny man said. When will Suabai be back? Thinking about the scene, Tang Tian still had a lingering fear. It was truly a close shave. If he had been slightly later, he would have been buried in the terrifying explosion. Although he had retreated the moment he threw out the bomb, but the aftermath of the explosion had directly sent him flying over 300 m. Looking down from the sky, the crater on the ground was a ghastly sight. Eldest young noble and Xianxia were dumbstruck. The rest were not any better. All of them were lying on the ground in disarray, their bodies covered in blood. Even eldest young noble's mouth and nose were stained with blood. 2 bodyguards tried to protect him and used their energy barriers to block the shockwave. In the end, they lost their lives and saved eldest young noble's life. This is where Miss Yu Ran's charm lies. The tall and skinny man chuckled. But from now on she belongs to you. If you don't like her, I believe that you can use her to recruit anyone, just that he is a man. That's right. Tang Tian said with a matter-of-fact face. I said to protect you, but I never said that it has to be within the White Sands continent. The tall and skinny man's gaze became even colder, his face revealing a look of ridicule. Being too smart might not be a good thing, no one is irreplaceable. Don't forget, if we can help you up, then naturally we can make you fall to pieces. Hearing that, the tall and skinny man's gaze turned cold. You investigated them? Careless. He Ying's eyes revealed a sinister look. I have prepared a huge gift for him. 200 Qing Continent tyrannical mounts elites, with Ah Sang as their commander. Humph, I don't believe that we can't take him down. Ignoring the startled Xie Yuan and Aya, Tang Cho was long used to Tang Tian's way of doing things. He asked, Master, where are we going now? His face immediately darkened. All along, his eyes had been at the top of his head, and he did not care about the consummate techniques of other continents, but at that moment he could not help but be moved. Eldest young noble was dazed. Meng Nan's every word was like a sword stabbing into his heart. After surviving a calamity, everyone's face was filled with misery. Suddenly he noticed Tang Tian, who was surrounded by everyone, and immediately cried tears of joy. He stumbled and ran over. Master, you are alone. Ah Leng, who was also covered in injuries, snorted. It is the Qing Continent tyrannical mounts elites, with Ah Sang as their commander. Xia and eldest young noble's face changed. Eldest young noble immediately said, Mr. Meng, we just came to an agreement. The tall and skinny man clapped his hands and laughed. That's right. But a pity Lei Erfu was dead. Master Meng. Master Meng. Quickly save young miss. I beg you, quickly save young miss. Within a radius of 5 kilometers, all of the buildings had been turned into ruins. They are the elites of the Qing Continent tyrannical mounts. He Ying corrected. He felt some heartache. I spent a lot of money to get these elites. I hid them in the mercenary center. Humph, the Qing Continent tyrannical mounts are not the underworld continent's demonic mounts. That guy is dead for sure this time. Good. The tall and skinny man seemed to be satisfied. The tall and skinny man's face changed, his gaze was fixated on the dim light aura in the distance. The energy undulation in that moment was extremely powerful, causing even his mind to palpitate. 200 Qing continent tyrannical mounts, with Ah Sang as their commander, was not a nameless person. Such strength was definitely not something any strong martial artist could defend against. But he knew that Meng Nan was completely right. Qing continent tyrannical mounts? The tall and skinny man was surprised. No wonder you are so confident. The tall and skinny man nodded his head, a look of praise flashed past his eyes. You are becoming more and more cautious, seems like you have improved a lot in the past few years. Xie Yuan and Aya seemed to have been immobilized, both of them were dumbstruck. The Qing continent tyrannical mounts who were in the center of the explosion were instantly wiped out. Not even a trace was left. When Tang Tian saw who it was, he heaved a sigh of relief. Fifth Army, you definitely did something. The tall and skinny man said indifferently. Chapter 631. They knew what was good and what was bad. After a few rounds, the enemies that attacked Moon Manor did not pose much of a threat to Moon Manor other than leaving behind a large number of corpses. Their losses were negligible. Although Qin Yuran was not a tycoon, but she had a reputation and was rather wealthy, and the guards by her side were all of good standards. Many of them were given to her by the continent lords and nobles of the places she had toured, so their standards were definitely not low. Fi Dai I Dai. Pupiu. And he used his name to mark the location. It was also a clever move. They were extremely familiar with each other, but Qiao Ian did not recognize them. Li Ran shouted loudly. His face was covered in sweat and dirt, but his expressionless face was currently radiating a strange light. Damn it! Li Ran did not say a word, he stared at Qiao Ian elegantly reaping lives. Qiao Ian moved with ease, gracefully cruising around the circle formation. Every time he touched it he would take away a few lives. Strength could win over fear, but courage and conviction could win over respect. Qiao Ian's pupils suddenly dilated. An extremely chaotic light aura appeared in front of him like a multicolored light wall. Li Ran dragged his slightly lame leg as he ran back and forth. When he was young, his right leg was injured in a battle, and he did not receive timely medical treatment, resulting in his right leg becoming a cripple. Li Ran, who had lost his fighting ability, was chased out of the army and lived on the streets, before being saved by Qin Yuran. Qin Yuran had once jokingly said, everyone's name had the word Ran in it, how could she just stand by and watch? Wait till I become the White Sands Continent Lord, I will be able to gather all the heroes under the heavens. Ying said proudly. A trace of disappointment flashed in Li Ran's eyes. He knew that they no longer had a chance. Looking at Li Ran running back and forth with his crippled leg and shouting commands with a hoarse voice, everyone felt some admiration for him. After spending so much time together, everyone knew Li Ran's legs very well. As long as his right leg stood for a long time he would feel a stinging pain. In severe cases, it would even become swollen. Having a tactical expert overseeing things was more useful than anything else. Although their individual strength was not weak, they were all put together. They were good at one-on-one combat and were not good at this kind of battle. Moon Manor wasn't suitable for defense. The terrain here was too open. And because it was located inside the White Sands City, its builders did not consider the problem of defense, which brought Li Ran a lot of trouble. The light aura that Qiao Ian released was not dazzling, but when it entered the light barrier, it was like a sharp blade cutting through tofu. Chi. A few heads flew into the sky, blood spewing everywhere. The guards tenaciously protected Li Ran in the middle. Li Ran's eyes were bloodshot. He was like a wolf, an old wolf that was on the brink of death. As soon as he finished, he leaped lightly and his body floated up. His speed seemed slow, but it was actually fast. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of the formation. He unsheathed his long sword in midair and a bright light sprinkled down. Li Ran calmed down after her excitement. In everyone's hearts, Li Ran was just a logistics officer who helped everyone manage their daily lives. Suddenly, his body trembled, his eyes staring fixedly at the black mass of figures behind He Ying like a black flood. Ah Xiang, focus on guarding. He stared at this group of wretched fellows. He couldn't believe that he was actually injured by these fellows. The guards cheered loudly. It was the first time they were a threat to Qiao Ian. Li Ran stared at Qiao Ian's fleeting figure. Qiao Ian's movements were extremely deceptive, but Li Ran's battle experience was plentiful, and he knew that people had habits. This habit would be reflected in battles, and especially when there was no pressure in battles, the side that held the advantage would display even more of these habits. Li Ran only hoped that Master Meng Nan would hurry over, that way he could be free. His right leg had already lost all feeling, but it was good that it was not painful. The guards below roared and brandished their weapons, unleashing layers of light barriers. Li Ran's face was pale white. He suddenly realized that the He Ying in front of him was the true enemy. He had initially thought that the disturbance was just a few pirates or bandits, but now he understood it was a civil war, a coup. And the one who started it all was most likely He Ying. No. Fuck this pighead, he dares to think? Li Ran's standard was high. His face was calm, giving everyone a reassurance. Everyone believed that the situation was still within Li Ran's control. Suddenly, a group of black dots appeared in the distant horizon. Qiao Yian's heart trembled. He bowed and replied, yes. As for the beauty's heart, would she be angry at him? Ying did not care. All of the guards focused and prepared to welcome the enemy. But when the enemy landed in front of the formation, the entire manor was in an uproar. In truth, Li Ran's heart was not as calm as his expression, but instead he was filled with anxiety and worry. The strength of these attacks was constantly increasing. At the start there were only 3 to 5 thieves that wanted to take advantage of the situation, but now there was already a small-scale mercenary group. Why isn't Master Meng Nan here yet? As expected of the silver-winged swordsman, he is very strong. The tall skinny man praised. Blood surged to Li Ran's face. He was like a gambler that had lost all his chips, and was putting up a futile resistance. The enemy was actually able to predict where he would land. He was caught off guard, and could only use all of his strength to brandish his sword. The tall skinny man nodded his head. That is true. Afterimages appeared one after another, reflecting in his bloodshot eyes that were at the end of his rope. Li Ran became agitated. He would definitely not agree to it. All of his fear was thrown to the back of his mind. The broken body was originally saved by the young miss, and to die for her, there was no better ending than that. Li Ran's leg was swollen like a carrot. The blood vessels were like earthworms. It looked extremely terrifying. He did not feel anything and continued to limp back and forth. Everyone looked at Li Ran with respect in their eyes. Qiao Yian flew away once again. Li Ran suddenly said softly, when I say someone's name, everyone attack that direction, do not hold back. Li Ran's throat was dry. He knew that they were in a life-and-death situation. He thought about the ladies in the manor, but at the same time he thought about the young miss. He Ying would definitely not let the young miss go. If she were to fall into He Ying's demonic hands, she would become He Ying's plaything. The guards that were long prepared, without any hesitation, all of them gathered all of their energy and brandished their weapons. Qin Yu Ran's guards looked at each other, then at Li Ran. Rumble, rumble, rumble. He unsheathed the sword by his waist. The simple and unadorned sword was raised up high like a flag. No one did not recognize the man in the center. He was the most powerful man in the entire White Sands continent, the commander of the Second Army, He Ying. Master, he is here. We are safe now. The remaining people were roused. They only had less than 20 people left. At that time, everyone knew that they would not be able to escape, and instead became even more ferocious, since they were going to die anyway. Li Ran's face changed. He knew how powerful the silver-winged swordsman Qiao Yian was. He had seen Qiao Yian's dazzling performance a few times when he followed the young miss, but after personally fighting him, the feeling became even more profound. Without any defensive structures, his subordinates were just a group of scattered soldiers. Adding a useless commander that could not fight, Li Ran laughed bitterly in his heart. To be able to fight to such an extent, it could only be said that they were lucky. Qiao Yian's entire body lit up with a light barrier. He slapped out with his left palm and groaned. His body flew out over 60 m before landing on the ground. His hair was disheveled and blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth. Xiang and Shaolin's heads flew into the sky. The blood that spurted out reflected the smoky figure. At that moment he wished that his subordinates were a well-trained army. He wished that he was like the past, able to fight with his life on the line, able to gamble everything he had. He Ying arrogantly waved his hand and a general stepped out and bellowed, "From now on, the defense of this place will be taken over by the Second Army. Everyone disarm. If anyone disobeys, kill without mercy." Li Ran's eyes turned red. He roared, "Formation! Circle formation!" Li Ran licked his lips and thought in his mind. Hold your position, bring 3 more men. Leader Li is right, young miss has nothing to say to us, this life of mine is worth it. The pleasing sword technique ruthlessly reaped lives. Any resistance in front of the dazzling sword aura was unstoppable. The sword aura swept past 7 to 8 light auras and finally broke. Li Ran suddenly bellowed, Dong Bo. Xiang, pin him there, leave the right wing to Shaolin. We are saved. Shaolin Yus. Ian, I'll leave it to you, no need to leave anyone alive. Ying said indifferently. The skinny tall man by the side had a faint look of ridicule in his eyes, causing He Ying to be enraged and his killing intent soared. Hearing the guards scolding him, He Ying's face became gloomy. The main force of the Second Army was not by his side, but the vanguard unit. Until this time. This conclusion caused everyone to be surprised, but more than that, they were happy. After traveling for so many years, everyone had rich experiences, and knew that the day was not going to be easy. Li Ran was roused and shouted, prepare to face the enemy. Many of the guards were actually filled with disdain towards Li Ran. In this world where the strong were respected, how could a trash win the respect of others? But young miss was insistent, and although Li Ran was unable to personally lead the troops into battle, but his daily management skills were not bad, and after a long time no one said anything. The incoming pressure made them feel despair and they had nowhere to hide. That's great. Li Ran's command was extremely methodical. But against these small fries the vanguard unit was more than enough. But they had nowhere to retreat to. He is truly risking his life. The ground was trembling, the houses were trembling, the air was trembling. He was old, crippled and about to die. Bang bang bang, weapons continued to be thrown into the ground, causing the servants and guards of the local families to be overjoyed. That is. He Ying's face revealed a pleased look. His strength is not bad and he is even more obedient. You also know the temper of the experts these days are not good. But after continuously pushing back the enemy's attacks, everyone started to admire Li Ran. It was rumored that Li Ran was an officer of a proper army, but Li Ran had never given a direct answer, so everyone treated it as a rumor. But now everyone suddenly realized that it might not be a rumor. Everyone pat your chest and say, how does young miss treat us normally? Nurture an army for 1,000 days, use it now. We have received young miss grace and today is the day to repay it. Anyone who dares to plot against young miss will have to step over our corpses. The guards' faces gradually became serious, all of them revealing a determined look. They were all experienced people. Upon seeing the aggressive stance of the enemy, they knew that it would not be easy. Xiao Yan moved left and right, his movements were unpredictable. The entire process was completed in one breath, and Xiao Yan's movements were elegant, without a trace of anger. It was an unspeakable joy to the eyes. Everyone thought in their hearts, no one had any disgust towards Li Ran's commands. Such a strong and unyielding man always made people excited. Their trust in Li Ran made the situation even more stable. At that moment, Li Ran also tried to get the guards and servants to start preparing, for example building some simple fortifications. Chapter 632. The truth proved that when women were stubborn, even famous generals could not do anything to them. Tang Tian, who had long been unhappy with He Ying, waved his hand. Enemies. If not for the Swift Army's harsh and tough training, I would have thought that Tang Chou had a grudge with them. If not for the pink skull provoking a powerful enemy, they would be in a worrisome situation. If not for the congealed protective barrier rose up from their formation, protecting them in the middle. The almost rigid fighting style caused He Ying's entire body to turn cold. The sudden change caused everyone to be shocked. He Ying was surprised but could not help but sneer. His position as the commander of the Second Army was not because of relationships, but because of his standard of commanding and fighting. He was extremely outstanding. So when he saw the enemies rushing out in a mess, he laughed, so it's just a paper tiger. A few of the enemies saw that the situation was bad and pounced towards Aya again. Aya was preparing to face the enemy when a small team rushed out from the side and cut through the middle of several enemies. 7-8. In at most 10 seconds the protective barrier would shatter. He Ying stared at the black flood in shock. The two small teams were like two sharp blades, suddenly rushing out from the center, cutting the vanguard battalion in half. Bang bang bang. 100 men completed the tactical movements at the same time, all of them moving in sync, The entire process was smooth like flowing water. Although Aya was unconvinced, she stopped the rest. Because she noticed that the skull unit did not have a general, and felt that it was the work of a lunatic. But their situation was not good, and they did not have the leeway to be picky. Aya struggled to hold on, using all her might to control every bit of energy, although the energy barrier trembled intensely, but it did not break. For 5. She had never met so many experts before. Tang Chao's black face appeared in Aya's mind. She immediately trembled and shouted anxiously, "Charge! Kill them!" She was at a loss. All of the enemies were powerful and unstoppable, and 2 of them were even silver rank experts. She did not understand why there were so many experts. It was too terrifying. Such enemies were definitely not people they could provoke. Am I going to die here? If they knew that I was the one leading the troops to escape, would they crawl out of their coffins in anger? The vigilance of the vanguard battalion, Xiao Ian holding his sword sideways. Outside the Moon Manor, the angry shouts gradually lessened and the mournful wails weakened. Amidst the violent explosions, waves of violent impacts came from the energy barrier, causing her to be somewhat stunned. Every employer was full of praises for their training, and many of the employers even praised that the Pink Skull's training was even more outstanding than a regular army. For the first time she hated training. Not only her but everyone in the Pink Skull felt like they were at the bottom of hell. It turned out that cultivation could actually cause fear to such an extent. If they didn't cooperate, it could be said to be a disguise, but if the commander didn't do anything, he would only be cannon fodder. Braking hard, turning around, getting into formation. Damn training. On the ground there were already several enemy corpses. After being at a loss, Aya's heart was filled with despair. The team members around her were all red in the face and neck. Everyone was using all their strength. Aya raised her head and saw the enemy with a sinister smile on his face. At this time the energy synchronization was completed. Tang Chou looked at Tang Tian. He was not clear of the situation, and did not know the relationship between He Ying and Tang Tian, whether they were friends or foes. In the past, Aya had always been proud of the Pink Skull's training. It must be known that the majority of the mercenary armies had very little training, and were relatively undisciplined. For the Pink Skull to be able to last for 3 generations, it was directly related to the strict training. There's actually such a weird tactic in the world. In her vision, the enemies pounced forward, the weapons in their hands dragging out long tails of light. Aya controlled the energy of the small unit. She had to admit that the lunatic had some logic, although she could command the entire skull unit, but her control was not considered good. But in the situation of only 100 people, her control was outstanding. Encirclement complete. Tactic number 5. He immediately determined that this group of people was a group of people who fought alone. He had studied Bing's reports and analysis of the Sacred Saint Galaxy Army, and knew that there was a special name for such a small unit, Vanguard Battalion. Aya and the rest persevered. His eyes were blazing, his entire body releasing a cold, killing intent, his expression extremely focused. His gaze swept across. The entire situation was clear to him, every single detail was clear to him. This army, where did they come from? Inside White Sands City, how can there be an army that I do not know of? He Ying panicked. It was the first time he felt that the situation was out of control. Boss, don't be in a daze. Triangle Eyes shouted. His feet did not even touch the ground as he led the small unit to run. Tang Chou said without hesitation the name Pink Skull. To Tang Chou, who was a stubborn and inflexible military general, was simply disgraceful. Even the name Skull Unit to Tang Chou was filled with the aura of bandits. How was it a proper army? But Aya did not back down on this point. It was created by her ancestors, and if it was changed to a completely unrelated name, she would not be able to accept it. Aya's eyes were filled with tears. She had always fought at the front. After the battle, I think I will be punished with more training. He Ying's face revealed a look of ridicule. His vanguard unit was filled with ferocious people. It would be good if the enemy did not cower, but once they did, their ferocious nature would immediately be aroused. As expected, the morale of the vanguard unit rose as though they were injected with chicken blood. They pounced towards the enemy with bloodshot eyes. They could smell the scent of fresh blood. The enemy's attacks struck the energy barrier like a tide, causing the energy barrier to fluctuate intensely. Everyone's chest felt stuffy, the energy in their bodies surging. The ferocity of the attacks far exceeded Aya's imagination. causing her face to change. Experts. All of them are experts. Every one of the enemy's attacks were like a small unit, ferocious and tyrannical. He finally understood why the enemy's commander did not have any presence. It was because the formation did not require a commander. Skull Unit Tactic Number 5. Almost instinctively, all the members of the Skull Unit were like loosened springs rushing forward. Aya, who was bitterly suppressed and had no time to care about anything else, did not notice that the other teams on both sides were like spring blades, killing their way over. Now, two of the enemy's blood splattered all over the ground. The few lucky survivors' faces changed and immediately retreated. As expected of cannon fodder, they were about to clash, but they actually retreated. Damn it! In just 10 seconds the vanguard unit was dismembered. Who are you? He bellowed. The Second Army is an important place, how dare you barge in? Every movement of an army was extremely important, how to attack, how to cooperate, how to synchronize energy, etc. But the most important thing was the commander. The commander was the backbone of the army, but in the army in front of them, the lady did not seem to have any presence of a commander. The brave and unstoppable vanguard unit did not even have any form of resistance. The individual strength that they were so proud of had no leeway to display it. Aya clenched her teeth tightly, her face revealing a blush. She led her unit to retreat. Only then did she realize that she did not notice the tactic movements during training. Only then did she realize escape. After confirming his position, Tang Chou immediately entered his role. After 10 seconds, Aya regained her senses, because the impact from the defensive barrier had greatly weakened. Aya, who had a new lease on life, quickly raised her head. The situation in the battlefield gave her a huge shock. Aya had always thought so until she met Tang Chou. He Ying's shout caused the entire vanguard unit to be excited, and immediately pounced towards the enemy. Cannon fodder. She was counting the seconds. It was not only He Ying who felt cold, every single person who witnessed the scene felt a chill down their spine. It was as if they were watching a gigantic steel meat grinder, continuously killing without any sympathy, without pity, dull and dry, without any passion. When Aya heard tactic number 5, her heart twitched. This tactic was developed from the Pink Skull's spring loop blade tactic, and Tang Chou had redesigned it with extremely harsh parameters. Regardless of the shame and anger in her heart, the past few days of training had been deeply imprinted in her mind. Her small unit was the most important part of the entire tactic, and she was the core of the small unit. That's right, she was currently the core of the small unit, but that lunatic had said that she was not a qualified commander, and had almost incited a rebellion in the entire Skull unit. Aya had led the Pink Skull for many years and everyone trusted her. Following that, the 6 small units swept across at a diagonal angle and once again split up. He Ying was dumbstruck as he watched the battlefield. The vanguard unit that was continuously being dismembered, split up and sliced horizontally. The enemy was like a spring knife. Every blade was extremely accurate, like a machine without any emotions. Enemy to Tang Chou, this definition was something that he was not clear of. As long as it was an enemy in Tang Chou's eyes, there was only one outcome, and that was to destroy them both physically and mentally. That lunatic, what did he change the spring loop blade to? Tang Chou, who was proficient in analysis, upon seeing the analysis report, he had already started to think about how to deal with the Sacred Saint Galaxy Army. How could he let go of the vanguard unit? Aya quivered. Her task at the moment was not to be in a daze, but to complete a small detour and enter the hinterland and complete an assault. He Ying knew why they were unable to unleash their full potential. The enemy maintained an advantage in terms of strength. Their formation was extremely flexible, accurate, fast and even rigid. Even if the vanguard unit was left with 3 to 5 men, the enemy was still methodically cutting and dismembering, without any fluctuations, as though they were a perfect machine. It's too humiliating. She was embarrassed and angry. She wanted to scold out loud. In her entire battle experience, it was the first time she had to turn and run. From her grandfather to her father, they had always taught her to be as brave as a warrior and to lead the charge. The vanguard unit beside him all reacted as though they were facing a great enemy. Qiao Yian could not care about Li Ran and the rest and landed beside He Ying. He Ying sneered. Although his vanguard unit did not have many people, but every single one of them were experts, and their fighting strength was not inferior to a proper army. Against such cannon fodder, it was definitely like cutting vegetables. Because of this tactic, the entire unit had suffered. Chapter 633. Xieyuan replied sternly, "The swift army flowed down the streets like flowing water. If it was said that the skeleton army was able to weave in and out, causing people to be dazzled, then the swift army displayed a completely different aura. The swift soldiers did not even look at them, and like flowing water, they rushed past them and surrounded the entire manor. From the looks of it, it was effective. Although the word kill came out of nowhere, but the swift army had trained for a long time and displayed its might. All of the soldiers instinctively activated their energy, and light auras suddenly lit up. Qiao Yian's face turned ashen. Just at that moment, a blurry figure suddenly appeared between him and Yin Yan. It was a tall and skinny man. The swift's wings suddenly lit up with silver flames, and Yin Yan's speed continued to increase. Kill. Qiao Yian's spirit was about to leave his body. For the sake of escaping, he had long activated all of the energy in his body. But the speed of the swift was even faster than his silver wings. Tang Chou did not feel much joy towards the victory. The opponent was not a famed general and was unable to pose a threat to him. Even for the victory, Tang Chou felt that it was not strong enough, and in the entire process, the vanguard unit did not pose any pressure to the skull unit. In other words, Tang Chou felt that the opponent was too weak, and that the victory was unable to truly prove his own tactics and whether or not they passed. A gentle light shield appeared in front of Yin Yu. Ever since he saw the skull unit's proficient tactics, Tang Chou immediately realized that the skull unit's methods were completely different from the swift army. But when he personally witnessed the battle, he saw the swift army and the pink skull being reborn in his hands. And even He Ying, who held great authority in the White Sands continent, was suppressed by him. He suddenly understood that the disparity between the two parties had widened once again. Although Aya was not willing to admit defeat, but her heart was clear. "Shut up." Tang Chou snorted and looked at eldest young noble unkindly. Eldest young noble was shocked, as though a bucket of cold water had been poured over him. His heart turned cold. He then remembered that the opponent was not someone he could provoke. In the blink of the eye, he disappeared. It was not only Tang Chou, everyone else looked at Tang Tian. When they saw Tang Tian's face, they were all shocked. They had never seen Tang Tian's face so gloomy and terrible. "Stop him." Ling Xia was the first to react and screamed. Since he was a lab rat, he should do his part as a lab rat. Aya had her own philosophy of survival, which was the mercenaries' philosophy of survival. She still thought that the skull unit was beneath the swift army. Huala huala. But the skull unit was extremely proficient in small-scale coordination, and was even more proficient in protection, harassment and pursuit. They were practically made for cities. There were obstacles everywhere in the city, with all sorts of structures floating in the air. It was difficult for armies to display their abilities, and that was the skull unit stage. Tang Chou was quite satisfied with the results. The vanguard battalion was very strong, but it was a pity that they were not good at teamwork. It was a waste of a group of experts. Tang Chou did not think much of it. With a clear cry, a silver light flew out of the array like an angry arrow. Within the silver light, there was a completely translucent swift. Just that at the moment Qiao Yian did not have the strength to appreciate the exquisite swift. An unprecedented sense of danger enveloped him. Inside the swift's small body, it contained an extremely terrifying energy. Bai Yu sighed lightly. "I also do not know if introducing Xieyuan to him was right or wrong. It has only been a few days and the swift army has completely changed. Even as a famous general, I am unable to do that." In the empty circular region, there were blood and broken limbs everywhere. There was not a single living thing. He looked at Tang Tian. Bai Shao was also speechless. In his eyes, Meng Nan was becoming more and more unfathomable. The strength that Meng Nan had displayed in the past made him respect him and also greatly motivated him. At that time, the two of them were still at the same stage, and Bai Shao was extremely confident in his own talent. He felt that as long as he worked hard, he would definitely be able to catch up and even surpass Meng Nan. Tang Chou's eyes suddenly lit up with flames. Finally, is it starting? And after that, Tang Chou's appearance also caused Meng Nan's back to reveal the tip of the iceberg. But just the tip of the iceberg was already enough to shock people. The silver-winged swordsman unleashed his absolute strength. His sword blade swayed. Clang clang clang, countless of silver sword wings appeared on his back. His speed suddenly increased, becoming like a silver light arrow. The skinny and tall man spat out a mouthful of blood. He flew out and was grabbed by Qiao Yi, and Tang Chou retracted his gaze and ignored the eldest young noble. He did not know He Ying, and the mission that he had received was to fetch Qin Yu Ran. Furthermore, he believed that the master did not have the mood to care about He Ying. They even forgot to breathe. But the skull unit's tactics were too immature and shallow, so Tang Chou might as well create a brand new tactic for them. But Tang Chou had never come into contact with such tactics before and needed to fumble around. Such an unforeseen event caught everyone off guard. From this point, it could be seen that the swift army had greater potential because from the start, Xie Yuan had used a proper army's method to create the army. Qiao Yian's face changed, all the hairs on his body stood, he was being locked on. Tang Chou's expression was cold, as though the one who won was not them but the other party. That sentence struck a chord in Bai Yu's heart and he nodded his head. That's right, that's right. Luckily he is our friend and not our enemy. Whoever provokes him will definitely not be able to eat or sleep in peace. This time He Ying is going to be unlucky. Bai Xiao laughed bitterly in his heart. Without the competitive spirit, his state of mind was much more relaxed and laughed bitterly. At least he is our friend and not our enemy. Xie Yuan, occupy the manor and begin to set up defenses. We're finished. But as time passed he realized that the gap between him and Meng Nan was getting bigger and bigger. This freak was constantly improving at a jaw-dropping speed. Tang Chou, who had set his sights on surpassing Master Bing, how could he be overjoyed over such a small victory? But Aya's face was as white as paper, the blood in her chest was churning, but she endured it. She had experienced many battles and killed many people, but the scene in front of her still made her feel uncomfortable. Aya was at a loss, but very quickly she regained her senses. She suddenly realized the most important fact: they had completely annihilated the Second Army's vanguard battalion. Xie Yuan also reacted, his face changed and he bellowed, "Kill!" As expected. The other people beside her were all gasping for breath, many of them holding onto their knees. The entire skull unit was gasping for breath. It was the first time they were using such a tactic in a real battle. There was no need to consume too much energy and there were too many flaws. But very quickly the gasping quickly disappeared. No one cared about it as everyone stared blankly at the battlefield. The expression on her face froze. The pink skull was famous among the mercenary armies and had a good reputation among the customers, but she was clear of the pink skull's strength. They might be able to fight against ordinary bronze armies, but if they were to face a silver army, they would definitely not have any chance of winning, even if it was just the vanguard battalion. She was not the only one affected, everyone else was affected and their synchronization rate dropped greatly. If such a situation were to occur during training, they would be scolded by Tang Chou and even be punished with additional training. It was so strict that it made people's hair stand. He suddenly grabbed onto Master He Ying's arm and with a roar he soared into the sky. In the distance the Bai family uncle and nephew were dumbstruck. Qiao Yian's gaze swept past the swift soldiers in front of him, his heart trembling. He held onto Master He Ying's arm and could clearly feel the master trembling. He became even more shocked, although the master's temper was not good, but he was extremely strict in managing his troops. Hoo. The lunatic definitely treated the skull unit as a test subject, and was trying to find something that matched the identity of a famous general. No matter how tough the training was, even if the lunatic's ideas were all strange and wonderful ideas, but she still took the lead and did her best to complete the training. Everyone's expression immediately became extremely ugly. Upon He Ying's escape, the situation immediately took a turn for the worse. Especially Ling Xia, an eldest young noble, seeing the cooked duck fly away, the frustration in their hearts was obvious. The distance between both parties quickly decreased. When Tang Chou placed more time into the skull unit, Aya did not understand, but she knew that it was a good thing. Although the lunatic was crazy, but he was definitely a famous general. A famous general's time was more precious than all of the mercenaries combined. The lunatic would definitely not waste time on pointless torture, even if the training looked like torture. This sort of solemnity and solemnity itself had the power to intimidate people. The silver swallow smashed into the light shield, but the expected explosion did not form. The light shield and the silver swallow burst like a bubble, and with a popping sound they disappeared. Why didn't you capture him first? Do you know how to let him go? Eldest young noble could not help but ask. Tang Chou was the only one who appeared to be calm, and in truth he was extremely calm. The battle that she had just experienced was like a dream. She had not understood the battle, but it seemed to tell her that all of her guesses and thoughts were not completely correct. Tang Tian gritted his teeth and spat out, "Honorable Martial Temple. I said let there be light." Aya gasped for breath. After continuously sprinting and killing, her physical strength had been exhausted to the limit. Compared to training, the exhaustion in battle was more than 30%. Blood and broken limbs were flying everywhere, and in such an environment, it was extremely difficult to maintain a calm state of mind. "Is this the battlefield?" He Ying's face was as white as paper. He looked at the army in front of him in fear. He did not dare believe that the White Sands continent actually had such an elite army. In the dead silence, suddenly someone started to retch. Very quickly, it was like a fuse. Many people felt uncomfortable and started to retch. When the last swift army swept past, Xiao Ian was overjoyed. Chance. Damn it. Other than the sound of their armor, there were no other sounds. The entire army was like a soundless giant beast. Everyone's footsteps were in sync as though they were one person. Xiao Ian squinted his eyes. The swift army was a proper army and they wielded heavy weapons moving in a wide manner. That's impossible. Do perverts always make people feel despair? A stern voice sounded out in the entire White Sands city. Chapter 634. Everyone had heard of Screw's story. But when they directly faced Screw, the shock they received was much greater. Especially when the hoarse and hysterical Southern Cross Army, advance, resonated throughout the entire laboratory, causing everyone's eyes to turn red. Xiao Ran's face turned frosty. "So you are here to make fun of me?" With that reminder, more people immediately thought about it. The Zanbato moved downwards, the blade tip pointed straight at Xian's nose. "I will be in charge of the construction plan." Someone raised his arm and shouted. "To better protect the young miss." This sentence immediately moved Xiao Ran. She hesitated for a moment, but still walked over and grabbed the door. "For Screw." Everyone replied in unison. "I remember the big ice coffin." Someone suddenly shouted. "Impossible, spirit origin is harmless to spirit generals." Someone immediately refuted. "I will be in charge of the spirit origin test." Someone shouted. But everyone did not give up. They clenched their teeth and continued. After persevering and working hard, they finally found the reason. From the 6th day of spawning, after using the remnant spirit to nourish for 7 days and no more than 12 days, it would form a spirit origin. The entire Blood Meridian's laboratory was under immense pressure, and now they had finally researched out the most important result. That's right, this result would become the most important result of the entire Ursa Major constellation. "Keep it." Exen said without hesitation. "Of course keep it. Think about it, the master of the door is the creator of the spirit cards. He is a powerful figure, but even he has to pay his respects to Haina Van Sant. Legend. That is a true legend. This door, oh no, this square shield is a legendary treasure. Since Haina Van Sant is a classical grandmaster, I have even thought of a name for this square shield. It shall be called Classical Undying. It sounds very high class and cultured, with the aura of a noble family in the future. It shall be our family's treasure." Exen did not feel ashamed, but instead felt proud and said happily, "Xiao Ran, although you have a big chest, but in terms of foresight, you have to look at me. That door looks like a good thing after so many years. It does not even have any rust. I slashed once, tsk, but it did not even leave a mark. Such a good thing, to leave it here is a waste. Ayo. My God. I surrender. Female hero, spare me. Hey, I have already surrendered, why are you still hitting me?" Everyone moved into action. Without saying a word, Xiao Man picked up her zanbato that was the size of a door and sneered. "Do you think it's so easy to take advantage of me? Eat my saber first." Finally, it was about to begin. Exen quickly patted his chest. "Of course it's for Xiao Ran." Old Man Fei cried tears of joy. The Blood Meridian's laboratory had already sunk into a frenzy. All these weird-tempered old men and old ladies, some of them sat on the floor foolishly, laughing foolishly, but even more of them hugged each other, crying, laughing and jumping. Xiao Man was filled with disdain. "I never expected you to be such a person. Even the trash was not spared. Seems like the Southern Cross Army's culture isn't that good. You must have done many sneaky things in the past." "For Screw," someone shouted. "Fortunately, my lord found a mysterious light egg. This light egg contains a rich soul source, and this soul source can heal soul injuries. If I don't test the power of this square shield, Wouldn't it be a waste of Xian's efforts? Xiaoran smiled like a flower. The square shield in her hand danced like the wind. In the end, everyone quickly discovered that these light eggs didn't have a soul source. This discovery made everyone despair. Could it be that the artificially bred light eggs didn't have a soul source? Repair him. Someone shouted. Such a warrior was worthy of everyone's respect. Old Man Fei shouted, "Does everyone still remember what Master Bing said? Xiaoran, you are currently only using half of your strength. Xiaoran, you are from the Ophiuchus army. Without a shield you can only unleash half of your strength. If you have this indestructible shield, it will be like adding wings to a tiger and you can better protect young Miss." The Blood Meridian's laboratory had always been spending a huge sum of money, but there were no truly heavyweight results. Compared to them, the Mechanical Weapons Laboratory had already become the true core of Ursa Major Constellation. In the internal department of Ursa Major Constellation, there had always been some criticism towards the Blood Meridian's laboratory. If not for Tang Tian's insistence, the funds for the Blood Meridian's laboratory would have been cut again and again. I will follow up on the concoction of the medicine. After that, they found a way to stimulate the blackworms to produce more eggs. Old Man Fei was extremely excited. Repair him. Even more people shouted. When everyone was done venting, Old Man Fei stood up and clapped his hands, attracting everyone's attention, and the room gradually quietened down. Inside the ice coffin, Screw's body trembled slightly, as though he had heard someone calling out his name after thousands of years of smoke. For the sake of finding a method to stimulate the blackworms to produce eggs, Old Man Fei was also ruthless. Everyone sent out a few blackworms and everyone used different methods to test them out. Luckily the blackworms had extremely tenacious life force, and there was no need to worry about them dying. Just that, to drag a big door into the battlefield, the scene made Xiaoran feel awkward. Won't it break him? Someone raised an objection. It was their first batch of large-scale nurtured spirit light eggs, and when the rows of light eggs released a dim light at the same time, the unique undulation of a spirit origin filled the room, causing everyone to be ecstatic. For who? Xiaoran looked at Axin suspiciously. If you have guts, then you have to take a beating. Wasting is not a good habit. Cough, cough, cough. Axin coughed lightly and immediately changed the topic. Young Miss sees me like that. Xiaoran, do you see me like that too? Think about it, who am I doing this for? With that, he immediately threw out something. Bang, it smashed into the ground, causing the dust to fly up. It was the big door that was torn down. Spirit light egg. My knee hurts. Our family? Xiaoran's face darkened. That was everyone's thoughts. Everyone looked at each other, and saw the seriousness and determination in each other's eyes. What about the window frame? You even tore that down. If not for young Miss stopping you, you would have even knocked the brick down. Xiaoran's face was filled with disdain. I will be in charge of strengthening the light egg. No, we must save him. Lady Mu wiped her tears, her voice choked. Hehe, if you don't have guts, you will take a beating. I think they are Master Bing's former comrades in arms. I am truly curious, what will Master Bing's comrades in arms be like? Many pairs of hands were raised up, forming a forest. An indescribable emotion surged in everyone's heart, every face brimming with fighting spirit and determination. The missions were quickly distributed, and the entire power of the Blood Meridian's laboratory was completely consolidated. Thus, the entire Blood Meridian's laboratory started to search for a method to nurture the spirit light egg, which was an extremely bumpy process. These creatures that they had never seen before were not difficult to raise. But after feeding them for a period of time, they realized that the blackworms did not ovulate. Everyone was startled. Exen saw the cold light flickering from the Zanbato and his face turned pale. Wait, wait, wait. I have something. Everyone tried all sorts of methods but to no avail. Until one day, Lady Mu accidentally sprayed her perfume on the blackworms, and the next day the blackworms laid eggs. Everyone then saw the light of hope. Everyone deconstructed the composition of the perfume, and very quickly obtained the most effective ratio. Exen laughed. The barracks is my home, we are all from the same family. Ow, you really hit me, I gave you a treasure and you still hit me. It's for your own good, a real battle drill. What are you doing? Kneeling if you can't win? For the sake of allowing Screw to be repaired earlier, Bing specially left the ice coffin in the Blood Meridian's laboratory. For the sake of placing the ice coffin, he specially transported a large amount of ice cubes from the ice plains, and built an ice room. A man should kneel with gold. How can you be so spineless? I've misjudged you. Exen swallowed his saliva with difficulty for the sake of tearing down the big door. He had spent a tremendous amount of effort, and naturally knew how heavy the door was, but in Xiaoman's hands, it seemed to be weightless. I am in charge of testing the remnant spirit. Another man raised his arm and shouted. The heavy metal door was like nothing in Xiaoman's hands. 3 days later they arrived at a canyon, and when they reached the end of the canyon, a crack that was suffused with blue light appeared in front of them. Furthermore, Master Bing said it himself. This sentence immediately dispelled everyone's suspicions. He glanced at Xiaoman from the corner of his eyes, seeing that although Xiaoman's face was gloomy, but the chill in her heart had lessened, he relaxed and immediately said, I have spent a lot of effort to modify this door. It is definitely suitable for Xiaoman. Xiaoman, look, this door is hard to break, isn't it the best shield? Although it is slightly big and heavy, but to Xiaoman is that a problem? Of course not. Hearing the screams and chasing sounds, Jia Shengguan, who was concentrating on calculating, raised his head, his face revealing a smile. Xiaoman's face relaxed. She felt that Xian's words were reasonable. The door was truly the best shield. That's right. That big ice coffin. In the current Ursa Major system, the position of spirit generals was extremely important and could not be lacking. Bing Tang Chou, the entire Ursa Major constellation's fighting system, was all due to the two of them, and they were the most important core members of Ursa Major constellation. And their nature as spirit generals made it so that once they were injured they would be incurable, and to Ursa Major constellation, that was the biggest hidden danger. That's right. You must definitely cure him. Exen stared at the blade edge, his entire body froze. He raised both of his hands and said, even if you give me 10 guts, I will not dare to make fun of the beautiful and intelligent Xiaoman. Go, let's go carry the ice coffin. We did it. Under the gray sky, the tall building behind them gradually disappeared. But the tall building was already beyond recognition. The big door had disappeared, even the frame of the windows had been forcefully torn down. The entire building was so clean that not even a piece of paper could be seen. The seal has already loosened. Once we open it, we can go out. We did it. When everyone opened the ice room, they saw that the screw inside the ice coffin was still mumbling something, causing everyone to quiet down. Xiaoman waved the metal door. She felt that it was extremely smooth and her heart was rather fond of it, but when she saw the line of words on the door, she muttered, "What about the words on the door?" The young lady's face was filled with unswerving determination. She stared at the light slit and muttered. They named the light eggs as spirit light eggs, and in this period of time, they had done a lot of research on the spirit light eggs. Very quickly, they realized that although the spirit light eggs could heal spirit injuries, but the amount of spirit origin contained in each spirit light egg was too little. And once the eggs hatched, the spirit origin would disappear. But he knew that it was not the time to be in a daze and said with a glib tongue, "Look, I specially added a handle at the back. Although it is slightly square, but square shields are not uncommon. This big shield truly belongs to you, Xiaoman. A big chest with a big shield, cough cough." Finally, it's starting. Chapter 635. If it wasn't for the series of training suggestions that he gave to the blue dwarves, Song Deity would have thought that he was an ignorant and incompetent fellow. It had always been a soul puppet that acted as a human's assistant. He might not be the first human to act as a soul puppet's assistant, but a silver-ranked general would definitely be the first to act as an assistant. If all of this was done by the Sword Forest stronghold. Bu Zifei heaved a sigh of relief. Seems like my life is safe. But then a complicated feeling rose in his heart. He actually became the assistant of a soul puppet. He laughed bitterly. A moment later, Yang Ziqing came back to his senses and asked anxiously, "What happened? Why is there a blue tide?" Bing leisurely puffed out a smoke ring, but his gaze was slightly cold. "Assemble the entire army and prepare to depart. So wants to see you." The soldier in charge of guarding him opened the door. Yang Ziqing's head felt as if it had been punched heavily, and he was somewhat dazed. These continents were the neighboring continents of the vast star continent. After a long time he slowly came back to his senses. These continents had already sent people over, which meant that they had been waiting for the news for a long time. It had only been 3 days since he had received the battle report. It was as if a bolt of lightning had lit up his mind. The other party was prepared. Lord, it is not the blue tide. There are only 1,000 blue dwarves. But they were extremely cunning. They suddenly rushed out from the sea of light and threw their javelins, causing the 22nd Army to be caught off guard and suffered heavy losses. After they succeeded, they disappeared. Yes. Bu Zifei obeyed. Upon accepting the reality, he no longer had any distracting thoughts. If they do not surrender, how do we handle them? Many of them have families in the vast star continent. Sword Forest Stronghold. Yang Ziqing calmed down and said with a determined expression, I must go. If they don't surrender, lock them up first. Oh, we can let them do some hard labor. Bing thought for a while. Those with families, don't try to persuade them to surrender. After a period of time, we will send people to the vast star continent to bring their families over. Were they finally going to make a decision? What? Have the other continents received the news? Yang Ziqing's voice was trembling. The other party already knew that they would win. The first place he thought of was the Sword Forest Stronghold. He could faintly see a net that was faintly discernible. Song Deity regained his senses after a long while. He was now in awe of the Sword Forest Stronghold's commander. Bu Zifei's heart trembled. He knew that the time to decide his life had arrived. It was possible to die, but it was also possible to live. Even though he had gradually calmed down over the past few days, his heart still palpitated slightly. He forced himself to remain calm. A defeated general has no right to choose. You made the right choice. Bing said, your current mission is to persuade them to surrender. Suddenly, a subordinate rushed in with a hurried expression. When faced with such a situation, he realized that he was not as brave as he had imagined. Yang Ziqing muttered to himself, his eyes filled with curiosity and palpitation. Song Deity looked at the report in front of him. He scratched his head in disbelief. He actually won. Bu Zifei never thought that there would be a day where he would be captured by the enemy. After 3 days, he gradually recovered from his daze and fell into fear. The continuous destruction of 2 silver-grade armies immediately caused the vast star continent to fall into an extremely dangerous situation. If the other continents knew about this, they would definitely add insult to injury. Master, the pontoon bridge in the Sea of Light has been attacked by the Blue Dwarves. The 22nd Army has suffered heavy losses. Bu Zifei's heart turned cold. The enemy had long planned this. He was extremely calm. He wasn't too dissatisfied with this defeat. After all, his opponent was stronger than him. Putting aside the strange idea of using one's own strength to decide the victor from the start of the battle, he had lost the initiative. And after that, he had fallen into the enemy's trap. The commander's art of commanding had far surpassed him. The pair of eyes behind the lingering smoke seemed to be able to see through Bu Zifei's thoughts. Bing said indifferently, since ancient times the strong are the teachers. I defeated you, I am stronger than you, and you are teaching me. Isn't that right and proper? Everyone's faces lost color. Bu Zifei's heart trembled. His mind immediately became clear. That's right, I lost to the enemy. What's the point of being proud and arrogant? After thinking it through, his eyes became clear again. This subordinate is willing. Song Deity then understood. The Sword Forest Stronghold had long thought that they would win, and the mission given to them was to reap the rewards after the victory. With the first battle approaching, Song Deity was excited. What plans does Mr. Bu have for the future? Bing puffed out a smoke ring and asked casually. With the precious Bright Village Regiment, they could only defend and definitely not attack. And the 3 strong martial artists also needed the stronghold's help. If not, the fighting strength they could unleash would be limited. No, they will give up. Bing scoffed. The news of the vast star continent's 3 armies being destroyed has already spread to all the continents around the vast star continent. What the vast star continent is worried about now is whether or not they can defend and not find trouble with us. Oh no, they still need to worry about whether or not we will find trouble with them. He forced himself to calm down. It was a premeditated attack. Not bad. Bu Zifei said calmly, although there is a process of getting used to it. Yang Ziqing had been in a dream for the past few days. The battle report was like a nightmare that he could not get rid of. He had never thought that Bu Zifei's 7th Army would actually be defeated. Sun Jie's defeat could be said to be due to underestimating the enemy, but Bu Zifei's character was extremely cautious, and he still lost. That was definitely not due to underestimating the enemy. Bing did not mind. He bit on the cigarette in his mouth and said casually, "Please sit, Mr. Bu. How have you been these few days?" Of course. Baba La's face was filled with pride. The friends of a legend are also legends. When we die we will also become legends. He raised his spirits and said, "I want to go to the Sword Forest stronghold." Bu Zifei was surprised. "Don't tell me we have other armies?" The brand new tactics caused the awakened blue dwarves to be filled with excitement, and everyone's morale was high. What was more exciting than creating history? Especially to the awakened and rebellious blue dwarves. The enemy had a clear strategic goal, but the vast star continent did not, so it was not wrong for them to lose. But what made him feel inconceivable was, at that time, the enemy was so confident that they could win against the powerful vast star continent. Just at that moment another subordinate rushed in anxiously. "Master, it's not good. The pontoon bridge in the Sea of Light has been attacked by an unknown force, and is damaged in 7 places." Bu Zifei hesitated for a moment, then said, "Should we prepare for the vast star continent's attack? The vast star continent will not give up so easily." The enemy was strong, far stronger than what they had imagined. Such an opponent was like a demon or god. Everything here filled him with curiosity. A strange stronghold, a strange strong martial artist, and everything seemed to be decided by his superior. He had never heard of any spirit dyad that had such a heavy responsibility and freedom. Yang Ziqing's eyes darkened and almost fell down. The piercing sunlight passed through the open door and shone on his face. After not seeing the sunlight for a few days he was not used to it. But at that moment the fear gradually disappeared and he felt a sense of relief. Yang Ziqing shuddered. "Yes." The subordinate swallowed his saliva. "We have sent a few scouts, Qin continent, Flowerstone continent, Li continent and Meng continent." When Bu Zifei saw Bing he was truly surprised, a smoking spirit dyad. When Song Didi received the order he felt that the commander of the Sword Forest stronghold's brain was fried. Did he think that he could rely on a central village regiment to defend against a silver-grade army? Song Didi, who had received formal military education, was very clear of the difference between a central village regiment and a silver-grade army in the human world. Blue world. He was finally convinced by Barbara, and the two of them thought of ways to form a group. All of them were awakened blue dwarves. The excited Barbara immediately sent someone to Sword Forest stronghold to send a letter. But the reply surprised the two of them. Bing rejected their request for reinforcements, and requested for them to seize the time to train and gave them a strange order. The blue dwarves were short in stature, weak in strength, and did not have any special usage of energy. But they were extremely fast, and after training they could become even faster. They were proficient in throwing, and all sorts of javelins never missed their target, and the blue world produced all sorts of strange javelins that were extremely powerful. Song Didi could obviously tell that the opponent was learning from the human light cavalry, but he had to admit that it was the best way for the blue dwarves to develop. "Master, you can't. Seems like Mr. Bu has not thought of where to go." Bing thought for a moment. "I wonder if I can have the honor to invite Mr. Bu to be my advisor. Would the opponent kill me? Or torture me?" He lost wholeheartedly and was filled with curiosity towards the mysterious commander. Especially when he heard that the commander was a spirit dyad, he became even more curious. Upon saying that, he felt his entire body become relaxed, and instead had an indescribable anticipation for the future. Finding the path to the pontoon bridge in the Sea of Light and waiting for orders there. "Master, this is like sending a lamb into a tiger's mouth." Yang Ziqing suddenly had a bad premonition. Is this another piece of bad news? It is time to begin. Occasionally, blue dwarves would appear on the pontoon bridge, but their numbers were small. As long as their numbers were small, the blue dwarves' fighting capabilities were weak. That was also why the people in charge of the pontoon bridge's safety were ordinary armies. Song Didi followed Bing's suggestion and continued to train the troops. In the blue world there had never been a troop that trained like that. The blue dwarves' tactics were lacking. Other than the human wave tactic, there was nothing worth praising. In that moment Yang Ziqing actually felt as though he was in the rain. Wait a minute. Did Master just say to find trouble with the vast star continent? He knew that the vast star continent was at its most dangerous moment. If the other continents confirmed the fact that the vast star continent was defeated, what awaited the vast star continent would definitely be restless. And at that time, with the Sword Forest stronghold behind them, the vast star continent would be in trouble. Chapter 636. The tall and skinny man was using spirit techniques, and had the style of the Honorable Martial Shrine, although it was slightly different, but Tang Tian was able to recognize it immediately. He quickly thought, "Let's go to Gold Street." Tang Tian, who was racking his brains, suddenly had an idea. Without Bing by his side, Tang Chou knew nothing about the situation in White Sands City, so at that time he had to stand up. "Have you thought about it? If He Ying fails, what would you do?" Lady Rose suddenly said. Qin Yu Ran, who had rushed over, heard that and anxiously said, "Big Brother Meng, you must definitely save them." His expression was resolute. Everything that had happened made him completely understand the situation he was in. If not for Tang Tian's protection, he would have been killed by He Ying, and not even his bones would be left. The tall and skinny man nodded his head. "I know the severity of the situation." The tall and skinny man heaved a sigh of relief. "You should have said so earlier." Eldest young noble reacted the fastest and immediately laughed. Of course. This is a grudge between us and He Ying. We are just temporarily borrowing the Suji Worldwide Commerce's shops. It has nothing to do with the Suji Worldwide Commerce's position." "I will go with you," Qin Yu Ran said resolutely. If it was before, when they left, He Ying would be more than happy. But now He Ying would definitely not let them go. Both parties were already in a situation where they would not rest until one party was dead. The tall and skinny man's heart shook, his face filled with shock. Lady Rose said indifferently, "I just want to remind you, don't forget your own mission. Those few families are the real trouble. How can we lose? If we can't obtain the White Sands continent, then we will turn it into a chaotic battlefield." Lady Rose laughed gently. "Chaotic battles are not considered a good plan, but it is still acceptable." Tang Tian's face revealed a look of joy. "Warships? Then what about these people?" Ling Xia looked at the ladies in the Moon Manor. "He failed." "How did he fail?" The tall and skinny man was surprised. His face was filled with disbelief. Although they were at a disadvantage, but He Ying, who had 3 silver grade armies, held the absolute advantage. "But those shops all have owners." Ling Xia was hesitant. The defenses of the shops were strong, but the employees had long escaped, and without anyone controlling it, it was fine against 1 or 2 thieves, but against an army the defenses were weak. "I want all of your men to move out." The tall skinny man's expression turned cold. "If they truly came from Heaven's Road, then they are the true threat." Luckily, the 3rd and 4th armies were not there. If not, their situation would be even more dire. When the Suji Worldwide Commerce's warehouse was opened, the gleaming weapons that were piled up like mountains dazzled everyone's eyes. And Tang Tian also suspected that the tall skinny man had already found out about their origins. The Honorable Martial Continent and Temple definitely had a special method of communication, and through Temple the Honorable Martial Continent could easily obtain information about him. Su Jin pretended to cough lightly and said, "How could you break down the door and enter? Is our Suji Worldwide Commerce a proper business? These things can be used by you, but you must ensure the safety of our employees. Your fight has nothing to do with us." The Honorable Martial Continent. The skinny and tall man was sent by the Honorable Martial Continent, who knew that He Ying's backing was actually the Honorable Martial Continent. Suddenly, the door of the Suji Worldwide Commerce opened, revealing Su Jin. He immediately waved at Tang Tian. "Over here." Very quickly all of the ladies followed out. Qin Yu Ran's calm and collected demeanor made everyone trust her, and more importantly, no one dared to stay. In such a chaotic situation, if they were to leave the group, it would mean death. Even the families that were on the same side as He Ying did not dare to stay. Before He Ying came, the hooligans that were trying to take advantage of the situation would most likely have found them. Tang Chou brought Xie Yu into the Suji Worldwide Commerce's warehouse. They wanted to see what they could use. Looking at the gentle beauty in front of him, the tall skinny man felt his entire body turn cold. The Honorable Martial Continent's intentions were not clear, but He Ying definitely had no path of retreat. Once the coup failed, he would only be dead. "How can we casually touch our customers' goods?" Su Jin pretended to speak, then scoffed. "It has already been remodeled." Lady Ro drank her tea calmly. He then spoke softly. "The Sun family's shop next door and the Rongji store opposite have many good things. The goods on the shelves are definitely gone, but every family definitely has a warehouse that they did not have time to move, so there should be many good things. You guys need to be quick." Tang Chow's eyes suddenly lit up to the point that no one could look straight at him. There were so many different types of weapons, it could turn the entire Gold Street into a fortress. He continued, and for the sake of theft and robbery, the defenses of the shops are not bad as long as we modify them slightly, they can become good defensive positions. He seized the time to recover his strength, if not for his stamina being exhausted by the Qing continent's tyrannical mounts. He Ying would not have been able to escape. The following battle would most likely be even more intense. He Ying will definitely make a move soon. The fighting intent in Tang Tian's body soared. He never thought that he would have to fight with the honorable martial continent so early. Tang Tian, who had entered his battle state, became extremely calm and sharp. You do not have the authority. Lady Rose's voice was extremely gentle. Furthermore, you are only guessing. Tang Tian's gaze was fixated on the warship that was quietly placed in the corner. If they were to escape, it would instead give the Second Army the chance to destroy them. Only by defending could they make up for their disadvantage. She knew that Big Brother Meng was not just scaring them, so she flew into the group of ladies and reminded them, cheered them on, and occasionally helped them out. If that's the case, then it is a good place. Tang Chou nodded his head. Tang Chou glanced at Aya. Aya understood and flew away. The bustling Gold Street was currently empty and desolate. Occasionally, there would be a few people who wanted to make a move, but upon seeing the large group of people, they would immediately run away in fear. Xianxia did not hesitate, although the ladies were burdens, but she was clear of their value. If they were to give up on them, it would undoubtedly be pushing them towards He Ying, and that also meant pushing the families behind them towards He Ying. Although the destruction of the vanguard unit was a huge blow to the Second Army, but in any army the vanguard unit was a powerful weapon, but definitely not the core. I suspect that they are from Heaven's Road. The tall and skinny man said. Gold Street has many tall buildings, the environment is complicated, it is more advantageous for us. Tang Tian, who had entered his battle state, was like a completely different person. His acute battle awareness allowed him to notice many details that he would not normally notice. If they were to fight in the wilderness and the Swift Army and the Skull Unit met the Second Army, they would definitely not have the chance to win. Even though the Skull Unit had won the battle beautifully, but the Swift Army and the Skull Unit had only been in Tang Chou's hands for a short period of time. Tell them to keep up with the team. If anyone falls behind, she'll die. Tang Tian thought for a moment, then said, Xianxia, go and tell them if they are willing to follow us, then follow us. If they are not, then let them be. I only have a minute. But Tang Tian did not think too much about it. There was no use in being overly suspicious. The most important thing was to fight the upcoming battle. You. The tall and skinny man was enraged. Tang Tian was startled. Isn't the door fine? There isn't even a crack. Tang Tian was surprised. Qin Yu Ran's performance was much more outstanding than many other men. But he quickly focused his attention on the upcoming battle. Su Jin laughed and spoke softly to Tang Tian. You guys came at the right time. There is still a batch of goods in the warehouse that have not been shipped out. There are many good things. That's right, your warship is here too. Tang Tian thought about Richard, who had not received any news for the past few days. But thinking about the chaotic situation, even if Richard wanted to find them, it would not be easy. If it is for defense, master, this place is not suitable. Tang Chou said directly. He did not place silver-grade armies in his eyes. If given time, he believed that the two armies would definitely become silver-grade armies. But now the difference between the two parties was a reality. He Ying had nowhere to retreat to, so how could they retreat to? Gold Street. Tang Chou did not know where they were. Eldest young noble and Xianxia were startled. The Honorable Martial Temple had finally appeared. With such a large group of people moving majestically, the bandits that were trying to take advantage of the situation naturally retreated. But they were unable to hide and believed that He Ying and the rest would quickly find them. You are right about that. Lady Ro chuckled and placed down the teacup. So, my men have already gone. Unexpectedly, the one who spoke was eldest young noble. At such a time, how can we care so much? All of these sneaky actions were the Skull Unit's forte. Aya was extremely excited to be able to openly rob. It was her first time encountering such a good thing. When Tang Tian saw Su Jin, he was overjoyed and immediately ran over. Everyone was dumbstruck. They had forcefully smashed open shop after shop. The tall and skinny man was stunned. Although he had just given the order to set up defenses, but upon knowing that they were about to face a silver-grade army, he immediately reminded them. the tall and skinny man's heart trembled. He knew that he had lost his composure and was not as clear as a lady. My mission is to seize White Sands and instigate internal strife in the southern region. Lady Rose said gently, even if they come from Heaven's Road, what has it got to do with me? You're too anxious. Lady Rose spoke calmly, her beautiful face was dignified and gentle, she sipped on her green tea. So what if they come from Heaven's Road? The pawns that cross the river are all orphans. Splitting up the southern region is a major trend. With the major trend in our hands, orphans are just ants. The orphans from back then, are they still alive? Tang Tian's cold tone caused Qinyu Ran's heart to tremble. The big brother Meng in front of her was somewhat unfamiliar. Maybe this was the real big brother Meng. There was no news of the First Army, that was a variable. Tang Tian suddenly thought about it. Eldest young noble's visit was Suobai's suggestion. That meant that Suobai had long sensed something. I'm saying if... Lady Rose smiled, her charm seeped into the bones, her voice was also sweet. If he loses, then let the pirates enter the continent. Lady Rose only listened but did not speak. He took a deep breath. You are right. But he concerns your success or failure. If he loses, then you will lose. They were about to face He Ying's second army, a true silver-grade army. Chapter 637. Xie Yuan's fighting intense soared. He ran back and forth tirelessly, shouting loudly. The opponent knew how powerful he was and did not dare to take it head-on. His figure flashed and a finger struck towards Tang Tian's leg blade. To her it should have been a perfect sneak attack. She did not hold back at all but only caused the opponent to suffer light injuries. She was experienced in battles and knew that although the opponent's injuries looked terrifying, but in truth, it was not that serious. The terrifying chi pressed straight towards Tang Tian's forehead. Tang Tian groaned, his body twisted strangely. He suddenly lowered his body twisted like a fried dough twist. His right leg was like a blade and shot out. Tang Tian was startled for a moment and immediately stood up. All right. This meant that Xie Yuan had the potential to become a famed general. In that moment he was secretly on guard. Maybe it was a battle in the wilderness or maybe it was a command on the spot, but Xie Yuan was not He Ying's opponent. But he had absolute confidence in setting up a defensive formation. When he was in school he had obtained first place for 3 whole years and until now his thesis was still a classic example in the school's teaching materials. When He Ying appeared outside the Moon Manor, she thought that the situation was set. She did not expect for Meng Nan to appear out of nowhere, and almost caused He Ying to lose his life. But what truly shocked her was the machine-like precision of the skull unit, causing her to turn pale with fright. Without thinking, Tang Tian's right fist struck out, the null flames whistled. Xie Fei's ranking in the Shadow Division was 23, and she had never failed in her missions. Strengthen. Continue to strengthen. Qinyu Ran is not feeling well? He did not dodge at all and welcomed the finger light and fiercely punched out. You are Lady Rose man. Tang Tian suddenly understood. But Xie Fei was not any better. The gray fist shadows were like raindrops, smashing towards the finger light. In a panic, Tang Tian's left leg suddenly stepped on the ground. Borrowing the force, he retreated. He quickly found the opponent, a few black figures, bringing along afterimages like ghosts, shuttled back and forth between the formations. As the distance was too close, the soldiers of the Swift Army did not have many ways to deal with the attacks. The black figures were extremely powerful and a few soldiers had already fallen. Moreover, that gray flame just now was very strange. Tang Tian's heart sank. Madame Ro had arranged for him to enter the Moon Manor in advance. Her strength was the strongest that Tang Tian had seen since entering the Sacred Saint Galaxy, and was even stronger than Qiao Yi compared to the Shadow Unit who had achieved outstanding military merits. The honorable martial army still needed to prove themselves. When two enemies meet on a narrow path, the brave wins. That faintly discernible sense of danger suddenly soared, causing Tang Tian's hair to stand on end. That slender, snow-white jade finger contained the power to destroy heaven and earth. The energy in her body surged, and the light on her jade-like fingers suddenly blazed brightly. His opponent's biggest mistake was to choose to fight him in close combat. Unexpectedly, even though he was fast, his opponent was faster. His vision blurred again, and the shadow of a finger rapidly enlarged in front of him. Tang Chou did not disturb him. The formation that Xie Yuan had set up was quite outstanding and tight. There were some things that he did not understand. It must be the difference between the two systems. What made him feel even more precious was Xiu An's fighting intent. In the face of a big battle he did not fear but instead was filled with fighting spirit. It was an extremely rare and important quality. Tang Tian walked towards the lady. Suddenly a faint sense of danger flashed past. The sense of danger was extremely sudden without any warning and was faintly discernible. But Tang Tian had been through hundreds of battles and trusted his own intuition. He did not know that the other party was even more surprised than him. Wars could not be reversed, and there were many uncontrollable factors, and brave generals were able to obtain the favor of luck more easily. And for generals who were good at fighting, their high fighting spirit could make them even sharper, more decisive and even braver. The honorable martial continent's armies might not be the strongest, but the development of the honorable martial continent far surpassed any other continent. The honorable martial continent's unique spirit techniques were completely different from the current training system, and were extremely powerful. Xia Fei believed that the strong martial artists that the shadow unit had surpassed all the other martial artists in the various continents combined. The destructive power of the null flames. The rumors say that Mr. Meng is impulsive and stupid, but from the looks of it the rumors are truly unreliable. The lady said. There was no intense explosion but Tang Tian felt a pain in his fist. Her finger easily pierced through the null flames, and a bloody hole appeared on Tang Tian's fist. The fire cloud at the banquet had left a deep impression on her, so she chose to fight in close combat, to prevent the opponent's fire cloud from displaying its full potential. But she never thought that before she could find the honorable martial continent, the honorable martial continent would find her first. Suddenly the sounds of intense fighting came out from a shop. Blood splattered everywhere, but Tang Tian was oblivious to it, and frantically struck Xia Fei's finger. Xia Fei's body trembled, the energy congealed at her fingertip was finally unable to withstand the attacks. She spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out. Tang Chao's target of guidance was the skull unit. The mercenaries had gathered an astonishing amount of resources. The amount of resources was enough for them to use for more than 2 weeks. But to Aya and the rest they were unfamiliar with such positional warfare. The training of positional defense was something that only regular armies would do. To her, He Ying did not have any reason to fail, and Lady Rose's arrangements were unnecessary. But she still listened to Lady Rose's arrangements and acted as a spy. They were already familiar with this. The honorable martial continent's annexation of the various continents in the western region was mostly due to the shadow unit. This quality was not something that could be learned and had nothing to do with tactics. This type of leader was more trustworthy and more reliable. Follow this and break through. When Xia Fei received the order to kill Meng Nan, she did not hesitate at all. To her, Meng Nan had the potential to become the honorable martial continent's enemy. She had made ample preparations for this journey, and did not underestimate the enemy. Tang Tian suddenly laughed. Idiot. Tang Chao's gaze turned cold. There's an intruder. With Tang Chou there he did not need to worry about the defense of the formation, and in a large-scale army battle Tang Tian was completely clueless. A dot of light aura lit up like a star and suddenly appeared. Sounds of battle came out from the ground above him. Tang Tian only saw a blur in front of him. In a blur of afterimages, a jade-like finger lightly pointed at him, bringing with it a faint white halo. The clouds were light and the wind was gentle without any trace of smoke or fire. Xia Fei was one of the trump cards of the Honorable Martial Continent's shadow unit, and because Lady Rose's mission was extremely important she was sent out. Expert. Lady Rose had arranged for her to be amongst the ladies, but she did not approve of it. With his life in danger Tang Tian did not hold back at all in his kick. It was extremely sharp. The strength of the lady in front of him was unfathomable. The strange finger was a spirit technique, and Tang Tian could sense an aura that belonged to the Honorable Martial Temple. But its might far surpassed the spirit techniques of Temple. The skull unit was more proficient in small-scale coordination, and once the battle reached its climax, both parties would come into contact, and the skull unit's might would be displayed. Tang Tian gasped for breath. His fists were covered in blood, his flesh was badly mutilated and blood continued to drip onto the ground. The gray flames that enveloped his fists had become much dimmer. His expression was sinister. Xia Fei's finger aura had entered his body, wreaking havoc inside. Tang Tian was overwhelmed with shock. Ever since the null flames were activated he was practically invincible. The characteristic of forcefully destroying energy made the null flames become Tang Tian's strongest killing technique. There had never been any attack that could penetrate through the null flames. And the current Tang Tian's physique was extremely strong, and even swords and blades could not injure him, but in front of the finger it was useless. Come on. Tang Chou did not see it that way. Good eyesight. The lady was surprised. To be able to recognize that this lady is from the honorable martial continent, Mr. Meng's background is truly not simple. Tang Chou did not interfere, no matter how outstanding Xie Yuan's talent was. To become a true famous general, he needed to be sharpened through actual battles. The battle that was about to begin was undoubtedly a good training. Mr. Meng, please follow me. Xie Fei was shocked. Her sneak attack actually failed. One punch after another. Sufficient resources and manpower, complicated terrain, it was the perfect condition. Be careful not to destroy the energy barrier, release a honeycomb sword cannon, drag it out from the warehouse and construct a defensive formation. She has mixed in with the ladies. A lady rushed over anxiously with a worried look. Mr. Meng, young Miss Yuran is not feeling well, can you go and take a look? The lady turned and led the way, but in the moment she turned, her figure suddenly became blurry. On Tang Tian's leg, there was a huge hole that was bleeding profusely. He was oblivious to it and only stared at her and said, "Honorable Martial Continent." The two figures separated. Xie Fei never thought that Tang Tian would actually choose to attack without any regard for his life, and before she could react, Tang Tian had already released a few punches. She knew that she could not retreat, and in such a head-on clash, any action of retreating would only cause her to be in danger. In the previous test, Xie Yuan had displayed such qualities, but he was even more tenacious. At the same time, he was tenacious and courageous, as well as an outstanding general. His future was bright. Tang Tian was currently touching the warship. He liked it a lot and pulled a few members of the Skull unit who were the most proficient in piloting warships over. The size of the warship was not big, but correspondingly, it was more agile and faster. Mr. Meng's elite army is being massacred. Xie Fei laughed. This young lady did not come alone. Where there was light, there would be shadows, and the Shadow Department was the strongest department in the Honorable Martial Continent, and their members were proficient in assassinations. And because of their identities as ladies, they did not attract any attention. If not for He Ying's success or failure, which concerned the success or failure of the mission, Xie Fei would not have taken action. Tang Tian laughed, revealing an indescribable bloodthirstiness. Although his injuries were more severe, but his confidence was at an unprecedented high. Damn it! Xie Yuan looked around and commanded loudly. There was not a hint of panic on his face. He was not panicking at all. I am about to fight with a silver-grade army. Isn't this the battle that I have been waiting for? Bang! Tang Tian's mind trembled, and at the same time, Xie Fei's figure disappeared. It was the first time she had encountered such a situation. Is it finally here? Chapter 638. Tang Tian bellowed, welcoming the rain of finger auras. He brazenly rushed forward. Tang Tian had unleashed his powerful intuition. Xie Fei did not feel good at the moment. Xie Fei could not believe her eyes. Is he crazy? She initially thought that Meng Nan would use his outstanding judgment to dodge the finger auras, but never did she expect him to not have any intention of dodging, and instead used the most brutal and direct method. Pack distance. Her 10 fingers were enveloped in the dim light. She gently flicked her fingers. The finger auras rained down on Tang Tian. Countless finger auras suddenly blossomed out from her 10 fingers like a white rainstorm. The young lad's willpower, the young lad's determination, the young lad's oath had never wavered. A person's energy is limited. Tang Tian acted as though he did not feel anything. His body was like an arrow, frantically rushing forward. He was powerful, his moves were extremely fast, direct and efficient without any hesitation. It was filled with aggressiveness, filled with a sense of pressure. If she had not personally witnessed the terrifying fire cloud, Xie Fei would definitely have thought that she was fighting against an expert close-quarters combat expert. Close-quarters combat saints' most obvious trait was their lightning-fast speed. And different from long-range combat saints, close-quarters combat saints' speed in a small area would reach a terrifying level. It was difficult to capture with the naked eye, and some experts were so fast that even energy undulations could not be captured. Stick to beat. To be able to use such a minute amount of energy, who is he? Xie, who had appeared behind Tang Tian, did not even have the time to attack, when a transparent ripple of air suddenly entered her vision, and at the same time she caught sight of Tang Tian's hand blade. Xie was in a difficult situation. Meng Nan's movements were actually faster, and he had once again determined where she was going to land, causing her to almost fall into his trap. As expected, once the distance was pulled apart, she immediately felt the pressure lessen. Tang Tian seemed to have sensed it. His figure flashed and passed through the three-finger auras. Following the momentum, his right leg suddenly shot up like a blade and slashed towards Xie. But she had abundant battle experience upon seeing Tang Tian make a mistake. That's right, to her, the enemy finally made a mistake. At such a time, the most important thing was to grab hold of the opportunity. It was the first time Xie was shocked. Meng Nan's indomitable aura was like a sharp sword, piercing into her heart. Coupled with this kind of unreasonable rhinoceros-like rampage fighting style, it finally broke Xiefei's mental state, and for the first time she felt helpless. A sharp gust of air brushed past her cheek, making it sting. Come on, give it your all. Xiefei was stunned. Was this guy looking for death? Both parties left behind two afterimages as they tangled with each other. His palm that was filled with null flames smacked the side of the finger aura. Tang Tian's fist fiercely struck a small energy shield. Bang! The small energy shield shattered into pieces, and three-finger auras quietly attacked from within the shattered auras. Every movement was incredibly fast. This was the first time that Tang Tian had encountered such a situation. Even the fundamental martial techniques were not fast enough. The incoming finger aura was filled with an intense killing intent. Tang Tian, who had an extremely sharp intuition, felt as if a blade had touched his neck, as if the tip of a sword was at his throat. Every muscle and tendon in his body was so clear and controlled as he wished. He could clearly see the traces of the finger auras flying, and could clearly see the white flames enveloping them. This was a powerful opponent. In front of her, Gongchen was like a baby. So fast. Once a long-range saint was closed in, the result would be extremely tragic. Xie did not panic. She waved her hand and another small energy shield appeared in front of her. The spirit technique that consumed a lot of energy was extremely easy in her hands. She could throw it out like it was free, and its might was much stronger than Heaven's Road. And when the blazing rain of light erupted, Tang Tian's face changed. Even Tang Tian had to admit that it was the most perfect combination. But following that, another finger aura pointed at Tang Tian's left rib. Tang Tian punched down with his left fist, accurately smashing onto the finger aura. Bang! The finger aura shattered. There were no fancy fundamental martial techniques. Other than speed, there was only speed. Since ancient times, intuition had always been one of the most mysterious powers. For example, old soldiers were always able to foresee danger, and when something was about to happen, people would always feel a sense of danger. She started to waver in her judgment. The opponent was more difficult than she had imagined. Meng Nan seemed to be able to predict her attack trajectory and easily dodge or attack. Her powerful spirit techniques were unable to even touch the corner of the opponent's clothes. There were a few times when she thought that she had hit the enemy, but never did she expect that when she dodged, the opponent would actually be able to dodge. But Xie was still confident in herself. She was most proficient in close combat assassination. She was different from those who hid in the shadows and used long-range spirit techniques to kill in one hit and one kill. She liked to disguise herself and hide in close proximity, and settle her enemies. She was most proficient in close combat. Her soft and supple arms were enveloped in a faint white flame, and as she waved her hands, countless of pale white finger auras flew out, all of them carrying faint white flames. The finger auras clashed with the null flames, but did not cause Tang Tian's figure to slow down. A scene suddenly appeared in Tang Tian's mind. It was a scene of a close-quarters combat expert that he had seen before. His strength had long surpassed that close-quarters combat expert, but when that scene appeared in his mind, that fierce attack ignited his fighting spirit. Bang! He did not slow down in the slightest, but instead increased his speed at the same time. Both of his hands that were enveloped in the null flames started to move at a frequency that the naked eye could not detect. Her pupils constricted, she forcefully twisted her waist in the air, and tried her best to dodge to the side. The finger auras were extinguished. She suddenly pulled apart the distance between them, and the distance between them was about 70 m. It was still considered a close distance, but it was enough to cause close-quarters combat techniques to lose their effectiveness. but her spirit techniques were still able to attack him. Borrowing the power, Tang Tian twisted slightly. It was her first time encountering such an enemy. His judgment was extremely strong, adding on to his efficiency without any sloppy movements. It was extremely lethal. Xia Fei quivered. She then noticed that when Tang Tian made his move, he was not blindly unreasonable. His hands would suddenly transform into fists and suddenly become palms. But she was still the trump card of the shadow unit. Her skills were not ordinary, her willpower was firm. After being dazed for a moment, she understood that she was in a life-and-death situation. If she had hesitated, she would have fallen. Could it be that my judgment was wrong? It was so difficult to cross the blue sea, it was so difficult to reach here, it was so difficult to find you guys. The Sacred Saint Galaxy was ruled by armies. In terms of individual training, they were far behind Heaven's Road. In terms of training, Heaven's Road was undoubtedly ahead. With the Sacred Saint Galaxy's energy and Heaven's Road's spirit techniques, the Honorable Martial Continent's saints were without a doubt the saints with the strongest individual strength. But how can I retreat? How can I run? Bang bang bang. Under Tang Tian's leg blades, the small energy shield crumbled, but in that moment, Xia Fei's figure disappeared. Xia Fei in front of Tang Tian was a silver saint that had gained enlightenment on energy transmutation, a silver saint that was proficient in spirit techniques. Kill. But so what? They are the Honorable Martial Continent, they are my mortal enemy. They are the mortal enemy of the entire Heaven's Road. They are an enemy that I have to win, an enemy that I have to defeat. There is no other path for me to take. After a few exchanges, Xia Fei finally admitted that her judgment was wrong. Meng Nan was definitely a true close-quarters combat expert, and furthermore, after the initial fluster, she slowly saw through Meng Nan's path. His goal is the extremely dangerous finger aura. When Xia Fei's 10 fingers lit up, Tang Tian had already sensed the danger. Such a mysterious and powerful power had always been the goal that people chased after. Many of the wise sages had spent their entire lives in hopes of being able to see through the mysteries of the heavens, but until today, no one had been able to completely grasp such a power. With a clear cry, her entire body suddenly released a faint white flame, which was a phenomenon produced when the energy in her body was transformed to the extreme. Tang Tian's attacks were extremely accurate. He was always able to strike the finger aura from the side in an instant. What made Xia Fei even more fearful was that the opponent was actually able to borrow the power of the finger aura. Tang Tian's hands moved extremely quickly. Borrowing the power of the collision, he continued to adjust his position. From the side, Tang Tian looked as though he was stuck to the finger auras and continued to advance. Since you are destined to be this young lad's enemy, then you are destined to be defeated by him. Meng Nan's close-quarters combat style was extremely strange. Other than the strange gray flames, there were no energy undulations, and he purely relied on the internal strength of his body. Not only that, their attacks were even faster. In a flash, they were able to complete over 10 attacks. And saints who were engaged in long-range battles would not even have time to prepare their spirit techniques. Meng Nan's close-quarters combat strength shocked her. She had initially thought that Meng Nan was not proficient in close-quarters combat, but who knew that Meng Nan's close-quarters combat was actually equally ferocious. Facing the rain of finger auras, Tang Tian's face became gloomy. The finger auras were extremely soft, but if one were to underestimate them because of that, they would definitely die miserably. The degree of condensation of the finger auras surpassed the spirit techniques of Heaven's Road. Saints of the Sacred Saint Galaxy had accumulated far more energy than saints of Heaven's Road. No, it's not a direct confrontation. In the video, the close-quarters combat expert was sticking to the opponent's attacks, continuously closing the distance, extremely tyrannical. So weird, Xia Fei's heart jumped. She had found the opponent's weakness. When Tang Tian realized that, it was as though he was struck by a body immobilizing technique. His body suddenly froze in the air. The light auras enveloping his palms and fingers suddenly lit up, and his slender fingers disappeared into the air. That was also Xia Fei's plan. Meng Nan's display of strength at the banquet leaned towards long-range battles. Some saints would be in between the two like swordsmen, but no one could be proficient in both long-range and close-quarters combat. Although it seemed that Meng Nan had some skills in close-quarters combat, but Xia Fei firmly believed that as long as she gave him enough pressure, he would reveal his true form. Under the extreme danger, Tang Tian's attention was completely focused. His intuition had also risen to a terrifying level. The world in front of him seemed to have slowed down. His astonishing intuition allowed him to immediately judge that the rain of light was extremely dense, far exceeding the frequency of his attacks. That also meant that Tang Tian's fundamental martial techniques were not fast enough. Force your way in. Come on, let's fight to our heart's content. The threat of death caused her potential to completely erupt. All the distracting thoughts and hesitation were thrown to the back of her mind. But Tang Tian's eyes did not have any intention of retreating, only 2 balls of flames burning. If it was said that Tang Tian made Xie Fei surprised, then Xie Fei made Tang Tian excited. Chapter 639. In that moment time became even slower as though it had stopped. Could it be that after spending so much effort and experiencing so many dangers to reach here, it was all for me to fall here? But when her gaze landed on Tang Tian's face she was startled. That guy is actually smiling. But there is not enough time. In such a terrain a large army would only give the enemy an opportunity to attack. Not being able to send in more people meant that the scale of the battle would not be large, but the intensity of the battle caused every spectator's face to turn ugly. This was extremely important because the shops were the most important areas to set up their formations. Only by chasing the extremely slippery assassins out from the dark corners could Xie Yuan calmly set up his formation. Tang Tian had trained his fundamental martial techniques to an extremely profound level, possibly to an unprecedented level, and probably no one would spend so much time on fundamental martial techniques. Xie Fei had some respect in her heart, but her expression quickly turned cold. The opponent's injuries were severe, and was obviously an arrow at the end of its flight. Amidst the dense explosions of the finger auras, there was also the sound of blood spurting out. Amidst the white light that filled the sky, blood droplets swept past. The young man's face was so focused that it looked like a statue. The skull unit had already lost over 60 men, but they had also killed 6 of the enemy's men. Even if Aya and the rest had the absolute advantage in numbers, killing an elite assassin would require the lives of 10 soldiers. Everyone enter the formation. A pillar of blood shot out from his chest, leaving behind a hole. Tang Tian did not even groan, he grinned and revealed his white teeth. The injury this time had given him some precious time. Boss. Aya and Xie Yuan's mind trembled at the same time. The blood drained from their faces. If something were to happen to Boss, then all of their hard work would be for naught, and that would be a complete failure. Tang Tian laughed. The casualties quickly appeared. It was the skull unit. The second army flew over majestically, and when Xie Yuan saw the warships his face finally changed. In the distant horizon, there were many light dots that lit up the darkness. The battle on the ground was also extremely intense. Tang Tian received a huge blow. To any saint, if their strongest point was destroyed by someone else, that kind of blow was undoubtedly devastating. Every detail, every change was unprecedentedly clear, unprecedentedly magnified. Bang bang bang. Puff. In the pool of blood the assassin coughed up blood. Tang Tian was like a fish on the verge of suffocation, frantically searching for a glimmer of hope to survive. Tang Chao's orders were immediately executed. The swift army quickly retreated, while the skull unit rushed forward. Tang Tian's tenacity far exceeded Xie Fei's imagination. Tang Tian had already suffered 12 finger auras, although they were not fatal, but blood continued to flow out, making him look like a man made of blood. Just as they wanted to charge back, Tang Chao's cold order came out. Skull unit, retreat back to your position, everyone prepare for battle. There must be, tactic number 7. But they were elites of the honorable martial continent, they were powerful and experienced. The finger radiance sank into the wall, ground, and warship behind him as effortlessly as cutting through tofu, leaving behind densely packed holes like a beehive. Even a warship with an astonishing defense could not put up any resistance in front of these finger auras. Wood splinters flew everywhere and the deck was pierced through. And the finger auras that entered the ground left behind bottomless holes. I said before that I will never give up. I said that I will definitely fight to the end. I said that I will never give up any hope. No, even if there is no hope. I said that I will definitely be there. Even if I am covered in injuries, even if I am badly mutilated, even if I am struggling at death's door, even if I am crawling, even if I die. Enter the formation. The blood in his body suddenly boiled like lava. the intense burning sensation in every corner of his body wantonly combusted. That's right, it was as though something was burning, as though something was spewing out, as though something was roaring and roaring, wantonly declaring its will and pride. I can definitely be faster. It was the most common method for mercenary armies to use when encountering experts. A small team of 7, their fighting capabilities were not considered strong, but they were able to ensure that they would not be easily destroyed by the enemy, and their movements were more agile. The light aura around Xianxia flowed like water into her palms. Her expression was solemn as she slowly raised her palms, and in her palms, a gentle light ball was raised above her head. Xie Yuan nodded his head with a serious expression. He turned and flew away. He could see through the enemy's intentions. If the second army arrived, they would not have any chance to set up a defense line. Tang Chou snorted emotionlessly. Swift army, do not tangle with the enemy. Skull unit attack. You should also die at the end point. One after another, black-robed figures appeared and disappeared from the buildings. Their movements were extremely fast, like spirits in the night reaping lives. Xianxia was not lying. Her mission was to kill Meng Nan, and the elite assassins were there to disrupt the situation, and not give Tang Chou the chance to set up a defense formation. A thin light beam shot out from the light ball, and a needle-sized light spot appeared on Tang Tian's forehead. Aya raised her big sword and rushed forward. It was her habit to be at the forefront. Her individual strength was the strongest in the skull unit, and she was the backbone of the skull unit. What do I do? Tang Chou's order resounded in the night sky. It's time to end, brave warrior, then let it end in a dignified manner. Truly an unyielding man. In front of the true elites, the swift army soldiers were completely unable to resist, and in a short span of 10 seconds, they had lost over 20 men. Xie Yuan's roar resounded throughout the entire Gold Street. He knew that the most critical moment had arrived. The following battle was definitely going to be intense. The entire defense line was being guarded by the Swift Army. That also meant that the Swift Army had to face the attacks of the Second Army alone. He roared in his heart. He screamed and told himself. All of his focus, all of his intuition, all of his consciousness, all of his senses, all of them were focused on the fundamental martial technique in his hands. Not good. Tang Tian was locked on. I can definitely do it. The 9th finger aura compared to the 7th finger aura that he had predicted had 2 more finger auras. After destroying the 2 finger auras, he saw hope for victory. Frigates. The Second Army actually brought a frigate. After destroying the 9th finger aura, Tang Tian was finally struck by the finger aura. Qi, blood splattered, and a bloody hole appeared on his thigh. After paying the price of close to 80 men, Aya finally killed the last assassin. Furthermore, every bit of time was exchanged with the lives of the Skull Unit's soldiers. The familiarity that was formed from training for a long period of time was like a thick layer of ice, slowly melting, and a few unfamiliar details started to appear. Out of all the martial techniques that Tang Tian had trained in, fundamental martial techniques were the fastest. Although there were many martial techniques that added in a large number of techniques to increase the speed of his attacks. But to Tang Tian they were all superfluous. Tang Tian suddenly woke up for some reason. A burst of anger surged from his chest. The Second Army. They had changed from fighting one-on-one and started to cover for each other. The finger auras in front of him gradually closed in. Tang Tian, who was in a strange state, was extremely clear of his own ending. On the 7th finger aura he was finally unable to keep up with the speed of the finger aura and was struck. Aya's eyes were already red from killing, and so were the Skull Unit. The Skull Unit crumbled like snow and quickly turned into groups of 7. They were like small snakes, closing in on the elite assassins from all directions. Time was too tight. The formation that they had set up was far from being impregnable, and could not even be considered complete. She spoke softly, but it was like thunder, causing the energy around her to jump. Inside the torrential light auras, Tang Tian's figure was like a withered leaf, helpless and weak. Light does not forgive anything. Xie Yuan secretly clenched his fists. There definitely is. But more importantly, she had successfully pushed the assassins onto the streets. He was extremely focused on the fundamental martial techniques in his hands, and did not feel the finger auras that filled the sky. He continued to shatter 3 finger auras, and seeing that he could not dodge the 4th finger aura, Tang Tian did not dodge, but instead moved his body to receive it. No. Xie Yuan and Aya were startled. Their eyes immediately looked towards the sky. Even if I die, I should die at the end point. Pa pa pa. The energy in the entire street trembled, causing Aya and the rest to reveal looks of shock. The assassin, who was lying in a pool of blood, suddenly revealed a fanatical light aura in his eyes, leaving behind the fanatical look on his face. His life force dissipated. Xia Fei's entire body was enveloped in a layer of faint white light aura. Her awe-inspiring might was like that of a god. Her eyes did not have any emotions. It was indifferent and dignified. With her full power attack, she had entered a whole new realm. Even Tang Tian, who had a strong mental fortitude, was at a loss for what to do in that instant. Just at that moment, a sudden thunderous sound exploded in the sky. Every sacrifice of her comrades caused Aya's heart to bleed. She then understood that the battlefield was another world, a world that was even more cruel than their usual battles. Xia Fei heaved a sigh of relief. The opponent was finally injured. That meant that he was not far from death. Light does not forgive anything. The finger auras in front of him covered his entire vision. There were too many of them, to the point that there was no space for him to dodge. After training in the fundamental martial techniques countless of times, he was extremely familiar with every movement as though it was instinct. Not enough. This is not enough. There must be something that can make it even faster. The flames of conviction burned Tang Tian's steel body. He was like a man made of steel that just jumped out of a furnace. His entire body was red. He attacked frantically, not leaving any leeway, not retreating at all. The fundamental martial techniques ignited with willpower, exploding in the air. Tang Chou knew that the battle would not end so quickly. He turned to Xie Yuan and said, "Hurry up and set up the formation." Tang Tian's attack frequency was so high that even Ling Su could not catch up. In Tang Tian's battles he had encountered all sorts of situations, but it was the first time he realized that his attack frequency was not high enough. Fundamental martial techniques lacked variations and did not involve the use of true power, causing its might to be small, and its use in battle was basically zero. But because there were no variations and no true power to be used, it was the fastest. Chapter 640. Xia Fei sensed danger. The light ball in her hand released a light beam that shot towards Little Fool. Little Fool looked at the lady in front of him coldly. Her body was releasing an extremely disgusting aura. Fight. Tang Tian walked towards the warship shakily. Xia Fei's heart sank, but she was not happy at all. She did not feel that the tiny light beam had hit anything. This gave her a bad premonition, but her unforgivable death ray had never missed before. Could it be that she was imagining things? That is Blink Mengnan is. Wait a bit more. Xie Yuan said. Tang Tian suddenly laughed. The smile that landed in Xia Fei's eyes was extremely bewitching. Xia Fei's heart jumped. She suddenly opened her eyes. The Mengnan in front of her was extremely brave and ferocious. But why would he have such a bewitching smile? The air was filled with the smell of blood. It was the idiot's blood. I never thought that Xia Fei would be able to force Tang Tian to such a state, causing Little Fool to be surprised. But after the surprise there was a dense killing intent. The fire net was extremely agile. Upon coming into contact with the light ball, it immediately wrapped around it tightly. Definitely not. She threw the light ball in her hand towards Little Fool and turned to escape. The true despair was when you wanted to fight but did not even have the chance to. You wanted to risk your life but did not even have the chance. Whoosh. Bang! The light barrier of one of the shops finally shattered. A light ball smashed into it like a shooting star. The intense explosion razed it to the ground. Like, so annoying. She then noticed that on Mengnan's shoulder, there was an additional spirit dyad that looked like a child. Dressed in blue, expressionless, the face that looked exactly like Mengnan was extremely cute. It was just that this adorable and tender little face that made one want to pinch it was expressionless. The rain of light filled the sky. The rumbling of the warships was like a passionate symphony. The colorful light barriers of the shops on Gold Street swayed in the wind and rain. Although they had spent a lot of money, but when they were created, the situation that they had envisioned was never war. This caused the entire Second Army to cheer loudly. They were greatly encouraged. They frantically activated all of their energy and unleashed all of their attacks on the once flourishing place. Wait a minute. The adjutant clenched his teeth. Yes. Little Fool's body swayed and disappeared. The light beam missed. Without any warning, Little Fool appeared at a corner of the chessboard, his right palm clenched. Zzz. Sparks flew everywhere. The black Saint Sword Ocean prison was pulled out from the void dark flames swallowing and spitting. Little Fool flipped his hand and stabbed Saint Sword Ocean prison into the chessboard beneath his feet. The waiter sneered, "You're injured like this and you still want to fight?" Xie Yuan's tone was low as if it came from the depths of his throat. At that moment he came to a sudden realization. "Milord, if we don't retaliate..." The adjutant was extremely agitated. Darkness hates light. The black void dark flames wriggled like a black snake flowing along the lines of the chessboard. If one looked closely they would realize that the black void dark flames were wrapped with a layer of transparent flame, that was the spirit-devouring flame. "No. I still underestimated him. Wait a little longer." Xie Yuan's tone was resolute. No, the young man only wanted to fight. He only knew how to fight until he was left with his last breath. "Leave no one alive." He Ying's angry roar was like a dark cloud that covered the sun, reverberating in every corner of the sky. "Graceful sword." Little Fool felt that his common sense was completely toppled. His mouth could not help but reveal a bitter smile. What kind of freak is this idiot, to actually be able to gain enlightenment on laws from fundamental martial techniques? The chessboard rose from the ground like a fire net, pouncing towards the light regiment. He turned and sprinted away. The faint fist aura flew out, not leaving any traces of light in the air, as though it had appeared in front of Xie Fei and entered her body. "Don't cause trouble for everyone." Little Fool said coldly, "What you need now is to recuperate." Whoosh. Xie Fei's face finally changed. A strong sense of danger lingered in her mind. Every time she sensed something like that she would turn and run without hesitation. Little Fool kept the shock in his heart and frowned. "What are you doing?" Tang Tian laughed, revealing his snow-white teeth. "I've long been waiting for you." Meng Nan came from Heaven's Road, causing her to panic. "I never thought that upon waking up I would become like this." The fine light pierced through Tang Tian's forehead. Countless of light beams lit up the space around him. All of these light beams crisscrossed, transforming into a chessboard with Little Fool as the center. It extended outwards. With that, Tang Tian turned his head and walked towards the warship, leaving behind a trail of red footprints. He clenched his fists tightly, allowing the blood to flow out of his body. The fire in his chest was still burning, still calling out to him. After releasing his fist, Tang Tian's body swayed, and was on the verge of collapse. Suddenly, a blood-red figure appeared in her vision. "I want to grind their bones to ashes." The crisscrossing light beams on the chessboard formed a fire net. Xie Fei was shocked. The last bit of hope in her heart disappeared. She no longer cared about the enemy behind her and ran with all her might. She did not know if there would be anyone like her in the future, but it was definitely unprecedented. The moment she faced death, the moment she faced defeat, the unprecedented sense of defeat, the unprecedented despair. "If that idiot dies, then I will die as well." She opened her eyes wide, not moving an inch, her breathing stopped. Xie Fei, who turned and ran, was not shocked but happy. She bellowed, "Explode." One fist. "Hey, godlike young lad, go go go." Xie Fei, who was rushing forward, seemed to have been struck by a technique and was rooted to the ground. "You are riddled with injuries, you are tired to death, you are in so much pain that you wish you were dead, but you are still alive, you can still breathe, you can still dream, you can still shout. You have the most precious treasure that all those who have died or are about to die yearned for the most, an opportunity to fight." The sea of laws in the forceful subjugating bead was extremely vast, and Little Fool, who had immersed himself in it every day, his understanding of laws far surpassed the majority of people. But he was still unable to differentiate what laws Tang Tian's fist contained. But something flashed past Xie Fei's eyes, causing her body to freeze, that is. His gaze did not leave the figures in the sky, he stared straight at the enemies, calculating the distance between them. Tang Chou, who was beside him, did not say a word, like a wooden man. It was a simple and unadorned fist that did not seem to have any changes, fundamental fist technique. Tang Tian's fist lit up with a faint light aura. It was a light aura that was completely different from combusting energy. Every time it moved, the energy in the space would jump along with it. Xie Fei was shocked. A spirit technique like Blink could only be found in one place in the Sacred Saint Galaxy, and that was the Honorable Martial Continent. Meng Nan was definitely not from the Honorable Martial Continent, so he could only come from one place, Heaven's Road. Because the Honorable Martial Continent's Blink technique also came from there. The attacks that covered the sky seemed to have no end, lighting up White Sand City's night sky. He was covered in blood and looked extremely terrifying. The moment the forceful subjugating bead landed on the chessboard, the flames on the entire chessboard paused for a moment. But in the next moment the flames erupted. The chessboard seemed to have suddenly come alive, releasing a bewitching energy. And, although it was just a glimpse, Little Fool dared to guarantee that the unknown law was definitely not a low-level law. Little Fool waved his hand, and the energy regiment that was enveloped by the fire net flew into his hands. The energy regiment lost Xiefei's control, and congealed into a fist-sized white crystal. Little Fool's emotions were extremely complicated. The two of them were two sides of the same coin, and it was difficult to differentiate one from the other. But Little Fool had always looked down on Tang Tian, although he would occasionally admire his bravery and perseverance. But in terms of talent, Little Fool felt that he could still beat the idiot in a second. Xiefei revealed a look of fear. All the energy in the space was moved by the fist. Tang Tian's figure suddenly appeared out of thin air on her right side. "Master." The adjutant spoke with a sobbing tone. All the soldiers in the shop were buried alive. Every single soldier of the Swift Army was brought out by him. He was in charge of the soldiers' daily lives and had deep relationships with them, and upon seeing the tragic state his eyes were about to pop out. This idiot is actually a freak that can gain enlightenment on laws from fundamental martial techniques, and it's a law that I do not recognize. The last breath that the young man exhaled had the smell of smoke, the smell of dreams, the smell of greatness. Tang Tian's stubborn blood-red figure staggered towards the warship. A light spot as thin as a needle landed on Tang Tian's forehead. What made Little Fool even more shocked was that he could not differentiate what law it was. Her snow-white hands picked up the forceful subjugating bead. As though she was picking up a chess piece, she placed it down. Unforgivable Death Ray was an extremely powerful spirit technique in the honorable martial continent. It had borrowed from Heaven's Road's spirit techniques, but greatly strengthened its might. He was expressionless, his hands formed a sword seal and slashed in the air. Fundamental martial techniques can actually gain enlightenment on laws. I want them to die without a place to hide. Injuries, so what? Fatigue, so what? Pain, so what? Tell everyone to listen to my orders later. Once you attack, do not hold back. Laws. Maybe I will die tomorrow. All of my dreams, all of my desires, will be completely buried in the gray of death. What reason do I have to not fight? Because of those ridiculous excuses, because of those ridiculous remorse? This idiot always likes to mess things up to such an extent. He did not notice that Xie Yuan's fists were hanging by his side, his knuckles had turned white. The ball of light in the fire net jumped, but the fire net shone brightly and the ball of light was firmly suppressed. Little Fool stared blankly at Tang Tian. He could not believe his eyes. Just now when Tang Tian waved his fist, the forceful subjugating bead suddenly lit up. Laws. Tang Tian's punch just now contained the power of laws. This punch contained the power of a law. No matter what, you can still fight. Tang Tian replied without turning his head. I still have strength. The waiter's expression changed. The energy contained in the ball of light was rather terrifying. A pearl appeared in his hand, the forceful subjugating pearl. The adjutant was stunned. I still have strength. Tang Tian suddenly turned his face and stared fiercely at the waiter. The sword entered the chessboard and the beams of light trembled. Kill. But Meng Man's body did not have any energy undulations. How could he know spirit techniques?